I had half a nerve to let our young one come up and call us to order, but I don't think that's legal. So it's my honor to call to order our Mountlake Terrace City Council work session for May 28th. We'll begin with the roll call. City Clerk, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
Mayor Woodard.
Present.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Page.
Present.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
Councilmember Matsumoto Wright. And Councilmember Doyle asked to be excused.
Move to excuse Councilmember Doyle. We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, none opposed. Councilmember Doyle is excused for the evening. We'll now move into general public comment. Any general public comments?
We have two people who've signed up to speak in person, but I'll first read the protocol.
Thank you kindly.
The city welcomes general public comments at the beginning of council work sessions and meetings, and comments on particular agenda items at the time they are discussed. Public comments are for the official record. Council does not respond to comments or questions during this time. Address the council as a whole, and comments shall pertain to topics, not individual council members, staff, or audience members. Limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes. The clerk will terminate comments beyond this allotted time or if there's a violation of these guidelines. Written comments received will be added to the official record but will not be read aloud. Okay. First up is Theo Cross. You'll have 5 minutes.
And I put a chair there, Dad, if you want to hold them. Perfect.
Okay, so this is the microphone. What is it? So what do you want to tell me?
I think you should put roundabouts.
Any particular place or?
On the intersection between 236th and 52nd Avenue West.
And why?
Because everyone keeps going too fast. What?
You don't have to say anything. Is that everything? Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sit down. I'll make my comment.
Corey, you're next. 5 minutes.
Thank you for hearing from me today. I'm Corey Cross, and I live in Town Center, right by 236 and 52nd. And so I've looked at the Main Street project, which appears to have roughly $27 million devoted to it in the next 3 years. And the phase 1 is supposedly complete according to the Main Street Revitalization Update Phase 2 presentation that I saw online. And in the agenda updated today, you can view a picture I've sent that somehow complete means dark curbs exist across the sidewalk as you go along 236 towards the transit station. And one I personally tripped over in the dark, and the narrow sidewalk there weaves side to side. You're 5 feet from the road and suddenly you're right next to it. And every time you're next to it, you're tripping over the driveways as they go up and down. And you know, as you get older, even just stepping off a curb can, I've been laid up for 3 weeks because of that, right? So it's not great. And it's clearly designed by someone who doesn't take our comprehensive plan policy, TR 3.1, seriously. Prioritize active and alternative transportation investments in areas around high-capacity transit stations to reduce reliance on driving alone. Right? There's not even enough width to walk past a wheelchair along there, most of it. And the side, and beyond the financial liability for injuries, it's just embarrassing for everyone involved found this acceptable. Let's consider we're taking a bicycle west on 236 to the bike racks that are on the north side of the street at the transit station. They're just down a slope in there. To get there, you have three options that I thought of. You can stop at the corner, but you have to make a 135-degree turn in place in order to get up the sidewalk ramp to go down the ramp to the bike racks. Or you can go in where the buses go and cars go to the parking structure and surface lot, and you have to go all the way around until you find another ramp. Or you can enter the sidewalk where the buses exit. They have their dedicated ramp that comes up this way, and you can enter the sidewalk, but then you're dodging people walking up the hill, and we put light poles in the middle of the sidewalk. And so you're dodging both of those things as you come down here. And if anybody involved took our Transit Priority 3.1 seriously, this wouldn't be the case. Right? There'd be an obvious and easy path to get to the bike rack. So I'm not complaining about the bike racks. I'm complaining about the fact that how could this even occur? And we've got a road, we have it in the comprehensive plan. We spent tens of millions of dollars, and yet the outcome is to make being outside a car as uncomfortable and hazardous as possible. And we've got a road that's 50 feet wide and 12 feet of sidewalk, and somehow we've got people in wheelchairs and strollers fighting for 3 feet of space. How did this happen? And my wife is too nervous to ride her bike in traffic, so she doesn't want to ride in the gutter on 236. But this sidewalk is so winding and narrow, she doesn't feel good going down there. So we live 8 blocks that way, and she drives and uses a spot in the lot, right? We don't have to go to other countries to find better ways to accommodate other road users. Our neighboring cities have mixed-use trails and roads which don't force bicyclists into the unprotected gutter. And in fact, we don't even have to go to another city. We just go back in time. On November 9th, 2019, the footpath connection from Veterans Park to MLT Transit Center was closed. And I have another proposal. It's crazy. How about we close 236 between the off-ramp and 56th Avenue for 7 years to cars and prioritize walking and biking? I know that's ridiculous, but I hope you think about why it's ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you both. Any other public comments online or in person?
No one signed up to comment online. That
Okay.
concludes public comment.
I was going to say, we'll check. No one else here wants. Okay, perfect. Like city staff. All right, well, then we will thank you again for taking the time and making it a family affair at that. Presentation on POLCO Community Satisfaction Survey is up next, and I believe that is online. I see Sonia. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hello, Mayor, Council. My name is Sienna Spencer-Marcos. I'm the Communications and Community Engagement Manager for the city. The city recently conducted our biannual National Community Survey in partnership with POLCO. To share the results of the survey, I'd like to introduce POLCO's Executive Vice President of Data and Insights, Sonia Wittink. Take it away, Sonia.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope you are all seeing my screen. I'm just gonna make sure before I start. So as Sienna said, I am with POLCO, and I've been working with local governments to do research for the last 20 years. I'm very happy to be here to present a summary of the findings from the Mountlake Terrace National Community Survey. And before I begin, I would like to thank Sienna, who provided a lot of thoughtful and detailed feedback throughout our project. I'd also like to thank Cindy Mays, my colleague, who was your NCS project manager for this year's survey, guiding in the implementation and reporting. Just a little bit about POLCO. Our mission is to unite people, data, and government leaders to help communities thrive through informed decisions and improve residents' overall quality of life. We provide tools that empower resident voices and visualize community metrics to support strategic planning, budgeting, and performance tracking. NRC is the research arm at POLCO, and we've been working with hundreds of jurisdictions nationwide for over 30 years. POLCO developed the National Community Survey in conjunction with ICMA, also basing it on our work with hundreds of jurisdictions. The National Community Survey, or the NCS as we often call it, is a standardized 5-page comprehensive survey used to assess resident opinion about their community and their local government. The NCS survey questions are categorized into 10 facets of community livability shown here, and they provide a holistic picture of Mountlake Terrace from the perspective of your residents. These facets have been identified through extensive survey research as the most impactful on quality of life. There are many survey items related to each facet, and the facets align with municipal departments, making it easy for staff to quickly find the information that's most relevant to their work. Most commonly, jurisdictions use this survey data to monitor trends in resident opinion over time, assess community needs, inform budget and strategic planning, and then measure the impacts of new policies and programs. How a survey is conducted matters, and we use our expertise to ensure that yours is statistically valid and reliable. This was your city's third time conducting the NCS. To select survey recipients, a list of addresses was purchased from the U.S. Postal Service and cleaned using city boundary files to remove addresses outside of Mountlake Terrace. This is the most comprehensive list of your residents, as it includes all residents and multi-owners, renters, and folks who might not be included on a utility bill, for instance. From that list, 3,500 households were randomly selected to receive the survey, and then mailings began on February 5th, and the survey remained open for 6 weeks. The first mailing was a postcard invitation, followed by a paper survey packet with a postage-paid return envelope. Both mailings included a link to complete the survey online, or of course, they could return the paper survey. The survey was available in both English and Spanish, and all mailings included instructions in both languages. 448 completed surveys were returned, resulting in a margin of error of plus or minus 4.6 percentage points. The margin of error gives us a sense of how precise the results are. So in practical terms, it means that if the survey was repeated and with the same methodology multiple times, the result would be expected to fall within that 4.6 percentage points that we see here. The data was also weighted using census data to ensure that the results best reflect your community. This compensates for representation of older adults and underrepresentation of younger adults, generally speaking, in survey research. And then also, in addition to the mail outreach, the city also shared an online version of the survey that was available to all residents. That survey received 32 responses. But this presentation and your main report are based on the 448 responses from the randomly selected households. Results from the open participation survey are included kind of as an appendix in your reports. One of the key benefits of using the NCS is the ability to compare your ratings with those from communities across the country. These national benchmark comparisons help show how local services and community characteristics perform relative to other jurisdictions in our database. Our national benchmarks include surveys from about 400 communities across the nation. And then in addition to that national comparison, Mountlake Terrace opted to receive comparisons to a custom cohort of communities, and those were from the same census region with similar median incomes and populations. Now let's dive into some of the survey results. In the survey, we asked 2 questions about those 10 facets of community livability that I mentioned earlier. The first question asks residents to rate the quality of each area. Just to pause to orient you to the charts in this presentation, question scales were generally on a 4-point scale. So here it was excellent, good, fair, or poor. But for ease of comparison, results are primarily shown as what we call the percent positive, meaning the percent of respondents who selected the 2 most positive response options. In this case, that's excellent or good. Additionally, the bars are shaded to show the comparison to the national benchmark, and symbols are used to highlight comparisons to custom benchmarks and also to the last iteration of the survey in 2024. Looking at the results, the highest rated areas were safety, natural environment, parks and recreation, and mobility. The lower rated areas were education, arts and culture, economy, and community connection. Education, arts and culture was below the national benchmark and similar to the custom. Mobility was above the national and the custom benchmark, and safety was above the custom benchmark. Both of those were trending up. The second question asks about the same facets of livability, but this is centered on how important residents think it is for the community to focus on each facet in the coming 2 years. Here you'll see that economy, utilities, and safety emerged as top priorities, while health and wellness, education, arts and culture, and community connection were less prioritized by residents. These were similar to other communities, except for health and wellness receiving lower importance ratings. We ask about both the quality and the importance of each of these facets, and we use those results to create the quality importance gap chart, which I'm going to show on the coming up slide. So we use this chart to help determine which areas are of relatively higher importance and lower quality to residents. This can highlight areas that might need additional focus or resource allocation in the coming years. As shown here, the economy had the largest gap, meaning it was rated relatively lower in quality, but high in importance. Education, arts and cultures, and utilities also showed moderate gaps, although again, education, arts, and culture was sort of at the bottom of our list for importance. In the survey, within those 10 facets, there are 123 items for which residents provide evaluative ratings. Of these items, most were similar or higher than the benchmark. So 7 received higher ratings than the national benchmark, 107 received similar ratings to the national, and 9 received lower ratings. Ratings are considered similar if they are within 10 points of the benchmark on benchmark average, and higher or lower if they differ by more than 10 points. Most of the higher ratings were related to transportation, and lower were related to opportunities to shop, gather, and attend social events or activities. As mentioned, Mountlake Terrace also elected to compare their results to a custom cohort from the same census region with similar median incomes and populations. Of the 123 items, 18 received higher ratings than this cohort, 102 received similar ratings, and 3 received lower ratings. Lower were shopping opportunities, vibrancy of downtown commercial area, and employment opportunities. And higher were related to safety, transportation, water, and air quality, among others. When compared to your 2024 survey results, in 2026, 23 received higher ratings that were statistically significantly higher, 96 received similar ratings, and 4 received lower ratings. Higher were related to safety, transportation, and trust in local government. Lower were health services, opportunities to attend special events and festivals, the federal government, and the expected impact of the economy on family income in the next 6 months. Moving now into highlights of our findings, we'll dig a little deeper on a few of these items that stood out to us. But note again, there is a lot of additional data in your full reports. So to start, residents enjoy their community and they plan to stay. Similar to most other communities, a large majority of residents said Mountlake Terrace was an excellent place to live and raise children. They also gave good marks for overall quality of life in Mountlake Terrace, plan to remain in the city for the next 5 years, and would recommend living in Mountlake Terrace to someone who asked. Ratings for the local government saw an uptick from 2024 and were good across the board. A large majority of residents felt that the Mountlake Terrace government treated all residents fairly and with respect, that they were honest and generally acted in the best interests of the community. Most, or about 6 in 10 residents, thought the government was good at being open and transparent to the public, welcoming resident involvement, and informing residents about issues facing the community. 4 of these items were higher than the custom benchmark, and 3 had improved from 2024. Mountlake Terrace is felt to be safe. Nearly all residents felt safe in their neighborhood and in the downtown commercial area during the day. A large majority also felt safe from violent and property crime and from fire, flood, or natural disaster. The proportions saying they felt safe from property and violent crime improved from 2024. Ratings for safety services reflected the outcomes we saw in that previous slide. Nearly all residents were happy with fire and ambulance EMS services in Mountlake Terrace. 3/4 or more gave excellent or good marks to the police and sheriff services, animal control, and crime prevention services. Rating for these last 3 items improved from 2024. All were similar to the benchmarks. The economy was of more concern to residents. The overall quality and variety of businesses and service establishments, as well as Mountlake Terrace as a place to work, received similar ratings to your national and custom benchmarks. However, other items were below both benchmarks, while stable from 2024. About 4 in 10 residents gave excellent or good ratings to Mountlake Terrace as a place to visit, and lower ratings were seen for shopping opportunities, the vibrancy of downtown commercial area, and employment opportunities. Affordability was also of concern, but this really mirrored the national and custom cohort communities. Less than half of residents gave good marks to the availability of affordable quality food, childcare, healthcare, and mental health care. But the ratings for the availability of affordable quality mental health care did see an uptick from 2024. Only about 3 in 10 residents had good marks for affordable quality housing and the cost of living in Mountlake Terrace. Again, these are similar to national and custom benchmarks, but show some concern among residents. Also similar to peer communities was residents' reviews of community design components. About 6 in 10 residents had positive ratings for the overall appearance of Mountlake Terrace. Closer to half were good with the variety of housing options, the overall quality of new development, well-planned residential growth, and public places where people want to spend time. About 1/3 gave good marks to commercial growth, and ratings for the variety of housing options did improve from 2024. Getting around Mountlake Terrace is easy relative to other communities. Higher than the national and custom benchmarks were ratings for the ease of travel by car, by public transportation, and by bicycle, as well as traffic flow on major streets in Mountlake Terrace. Similar to the benchmark, but rated as excellent or good by 7 in 10 people, were the ease of walking and public parking. Looking at mobility-related services, transit services stood out with the highest rating, an improvement from 2024, and being above both benchmarks. About 2/3 or more of residents had good ratings for street cleaning, traffic signal timing, snow removal, and street lighting. Traffic signal timing was higher than the custom benchmark. Education, arts, and culture generally had good marks, but with the loss of the tour de terrace, there was a concern about special events. Public library services in Mountlake Terrace got great marks, as they tend to in most communities. The rating for K-12 education increased from 2024 and was also similar to benchmarks. Trending down was opportunities to attend special events and festivals. This rating was lower than the national benchmark, as was the rating for opportunities to attend culture, arts, music activities. Similar to other communities, and middling in this list were ratings for adult education opportunities and community support for the arts. While the NCS gives a robust picture of community livability and services overall, there's a space on the survey to address questions that are specific or unique to the city. Mountlake Terrace added an additional 2 categories of government performance for residents to rate. About 7 in 10 residents had positive ratings for providing the public with opportunities to engage and get involved, and the accessibility of city communications. Only about 1 in 10 said these were poor. Asked what the city could do to further increase public safety for residents and visitors, 6 in 10 residents selected increased transparency and regular communication from the police department. 46% selected more community outreach with the police department and the community. And about 1/3 chose more opportunities to speak with the police department or holding public safety trainings and seminars for the public. Thinking about what types of businesses they would like to see in Mountlake Terrace, a majority would like to see locally owned restaurants and specialty food stores, while about 4 in 10 selected boutique retail shops, grocery stores, and creative businesses like galleries, studios, or makerspaces. With the light rail now open, residents revealed 3 main priorities for Mountlake Terrace's next actions: developing a vibrant town center, attracting more local serving businesses, and maintaining affordable housing options were selected by about 40%. Slightly second tier in priority were preserving a small town feel, adding more affordable housing, and improving walking and biking amenities. Closer to 2 in 10 residents chose enhancing parks and public spaces, supporting business growth and jobs, and increasing family-friendly activities as priorities. And the fewest residents were interested in prioritizing becoming a regional destination or adding more places to stay. Asked what concerns them the most about Mountlake Terrace growth, 6 in 10 residents said loss of affordability. Closer to 3 in 10 respondents were concerned about traffic and parking, overdevelopment, lack of infrastructure, and gentrification or displacement. And lower in concern were not enough development, loss of community character, and environmental impact. So affordability was really the strongest category. About 4 in 10 residents said that they were aware that the city has been taking steps to address its financial challenges, while 44% were unaware and 16% were unsure. Fiscal responsibility is extremely or very important to 89% of residents as the city looks to maintain services as the community grows. So wrapping up, the overall picture is very positive for Mountlake Terrace. Residents continue to rate the city highly as a place to live, with strong ratings for quality of life, safety, and the community overall. The survey highlighted some potential areas for future focus. Residents expressed concerns about affordability and aspects of the local economy, including shopping and employment opportunities. Ratings related to arts, cultures, and special events and community activities were also lower, but this was balanced as they were also rated a little lower in importance. Confidence in the city government was good, with many governance measures around trust, transparency, and resident involvement improving from 2024. Safety remains a clear strength, both in how safe residents feel and in the raising of public safety services. And mobility is another standout area, with transportation options and related services performing well compared to the benchmarks. The city can continue engaging residents on POLCO on new topics or to dive deeper into the opinions outlined today. There are 346 residents that are subscribed to your POLCO profile, creating an opportunity for ongoing feedback. This is included in your current subscription and supports quick polls or surveys that can include maps, images, videos, or links to better inform respondents about the topics that you're asking for their opinion on. There's POLCO Library of Surveys is also included, which contains 190 surveys and polls created by our survey scientists on topics related to a local government. And additionally, there are track dashboards that provide insights from publicly available data sources and can add additional context to your NCS results. And then finally, we have a dedicated customer success manager who can support survey design and engagement efforts as needed if you would like to use these tools to support planning on special topics or things that are coming up for you. So that concludes my presentation. I'll pause now for questions and maybe take down my screen share so we can see each other better.
Thank you so much, Sonia.
Excellent. Questions, comments, feedback? I see Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Mayor and Sonia. Thank you for the presentation, the details, and really the high level that you presented. My question really goes back to your fourth slide, and it's a question that I've been asked by some residents, when hearing about the survey. So just as a clarification, okay, so 3,500 mailings went to households, and there was 448 responses. That doesn't reflect 448 homes, that's just responses, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and did your survey have a means to, or were respondents allowed to do the survey more than once? So they completed one and they could go back as many times as they wanted?
Not on, well, the paper survey, there was one copy and we know if somebody's photocopied that. So no, not with the paper survey. With the online survey, it is possible that they could do it once or twice. I would say the more challenging thing is to get people to do it once. So we don't generally see more than one response when we track it. Sometimes we do track it. And when we have tracked it, we usually see less than 3% of the surveys being duplicated.
So
we do watch for multiple responses from the same location, like IP addresses. So if we're seeing a lot from somewhere, we would be concerned if it's not like a library. But we don't generally find that there are duplicate responses. Like we don't find ballot stuffing to be an issue. So and just to give an example, like so in one of the surveys we tracked and we found there were 3% duplicates. If we remove all of those duplicates and we compare, I mean, we just remove them because we know they're duplicates. But when we compare the results of the duplicate, the survey with the data with the duplicates and the data without the duplicates, it changes most responses by less than 1%, like the overall average by less than 1%. Often it doesn't change it by any.
So the survey, when it goes to the households, is it looking for one group think from the household, or is it looking for the household to
one person to do it for the survey? We use households because it's the easiest way to make sure that we contact everyone. Everybody has an equal chance in the city to get the chance to do the survey. But then we ask one person from the household to do the survey. It is sometimes possible. I would say when we have duplicates, it's generally speaking a husband or a male and a female in the household who do the survey.
Okay. And the only other question, I was just wondering, especially looking at some of the things that people said they really liked about the city and whatever, did the respondents in the survey have opportunity to share where in the community they live, like which neighborhoods by any chance?
They didn't, we don't ask for very local,
Okay.
but let me just double check, but if we sometimes do track larger geographies,
Okay.
districts, but I am just looking to see.
And I
if
asked that question because our neighborhoods are pretty unique into themselves, and, you know, some of them have better sidewalks than others, and, you know, better modes to transportation, you know, public transportation than others. So when I look at the answers on the survey, I just wonder, you know, were they able to say, well, I live in Lake Ballinger, or I live, you know, in other parts of the city, you know, that could distinguish that.
I don't think we did track areas in your survey. I'm just looking at the results on the online reports, and I'm not seeing a geographic, but it's certainly something we could make note to do for the next iteration. Most, or not most, but a lot of cities do at least like track at the council district level, or if they have, we usually suggest not doing more than like 6 areas, but you can, whatever, if you have a GIS file, we can track by those areas and still keep it anonymous for your residents.
Okay, great. Thank you for your answer. Like I said, these were questions that, you know, I have residents who look at some of the surveys that we do and some of the things that they question. So thank you for your answers.
It's very common. It's very common that people are concerned about ballot stuffing. And again, we are starting to track our survey, or in more communities, we're starting to track our communities or surveys more often with IDs. I will say it's an extra effort, and sometimes, you know, people feel that's more invasive because they feel like they're tracked, right? Yeah. But when we do that, we still don't really see a lot of duplicate responses.
Okay, thank you.
Others, comments, feedback, questions? Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Sonia, for the presentation, and Sienna for your partnership to get this forward. I just want to say, first, I think it's great that we do this. I think it's a really good example of something that we don't have to do as government, but I think is really important. We don't know what we don't know, and this is one of the most comprehensive ways that we're able to get real-time feedback about how residents experience our community. And so I think it's an amazing investment, and I appreciate that we have made that the last 6 years, and look forward to continuing, hopefully, to be able to make it in the future. I'm very proud of it. I mean, that 9 in 10 folks in our community think that this is a good place to live feels pretty darn good. You know, I think that, but I will take the affirmation anytime. And so, you know, I think there's all sorts of data there, and I'm, you know, particularly proud to see improving scores in terms of how folks feel about governance. I know we've done a lot of intentional work as a body, and city staff has done a lot of work to improve those scores. I think a lot of that feeds into the communication and folks' ability to feel like they can participate and plug in. And so I loved seeing those scores as well, because I think those are very connected. I was not surprised to see the results on the economy. It's one of the reasons that as a body, I thought it was very important that we preserved the budget funding to support economic development, because we recognize that that is a significant gap and has real impact on our residents and how they are able to navigate and experience their day-to-day life. So I was glad that we were able to preserve that in terms of at least initial direction to staff as they're developing budget for the year forward. And just, I was a little sad to see the result on events, just because we've done so much good work there in recent years. And part of me wonders if we haven't started to set the bar higher in terms of, you know, we've created all of these great new events in recent years as a city. And I think folks want to see more. They're like, oh, you can do that? Like, we like that and we want to see more. And then obviously recognize there's real impact with the transitions around Tour de Terrace. I'm excited to see what the iteration this year looks like with the parade taken on by the chamber, and look forward to hopefully seeing more events move forward in the future. But I would love to continue to talk as a body how we either support that internally or we support folks who are interested in doing that work within the community. I did think it was interesting, the resident concerns around loss of affordability in terms of growth. That 61% of our residents are worried about loss of affordability as a byproduct of growth, and I think that is an opportunity for us to have more conversation with our community, because a big part of our goals around growth is to improve affordability concerns for our residents. But I guess a couple questions, sorry, lots of talking, and I can ramble and I apologize, but I did have a question around where can residents find the full results? I know you talked about the platform and all of that, but where do folks go if they want to dig into if they're nerdy like me and want to look at all of the results? Where do we see that?
Well, now that
Generally
we've,
speaking,
oh,
we share.
go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I was gonna say, Sienna could take it. She's better equipped.
Go ahead, Sonia. Thank you.
Oh, so we do share a link to the survey, and so we have a PDF report that can be somewhat easier to digest, and then we have the interactive online report. And both of those are shared with the city, and they can be shared with the public. It's just really how you choose to share them. Some cities embed both in their websites. It's a Tableau public interactive report, so it can be embedded in the iframe if you want.
Right. So I was just going to say, now that we've presented to council, the results are final, we will be uploading the PDF and sharing it out to the public.
Awesome, thank you for that. And then just one other question, Diana. So for the public safety question, there was a 12% chose other. Was there a space to define other? Was there more details that we got as part of the survey about what other meant in terms of what folks' concerns around public safety were?
I'm just going to flip back to that question so
I just didn't know if there was like a comment box that went with that would have provided some like qualitative data in addition to just the general other.
I don't think there was a comment box.
Thank you.
But I will double check and make sure that I am correct, because I didn't set up the survey. My colleague Cindy did. So if there is, we will get back to you and make sure you understand where you can find that data.
Awesome. And I guess I would just put a plug if that's something, if there are other options in the future, I think opportunity to better understand what those are would be awesome. Thank you all for the work.
Others? Comments, feedback, questions? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Interestingly, Councilmember Murray and I made notes on almost exactly the same thing, so I'll try and be brief, but I did want to highlight, as Councilmember Murray did on a number of areas, but let me back up and just say, we've actually been doing this, some form of community survey for, I think, 20 years. And this is definitely the most comprehensive that we've done and seen, and the most helpful to me in seeing these results and being able to really dive a little deeper into what they mean. So I really appreciate the work that you guys have done. So great job, thank you. Just did want to highlight also economy, particularly, I think that's where we have the greatest room to grow, it looks like, between, when we look at the quality versus importance. I think, as Councilmember Murray points out, we've been very intentionally working towards addressing economic development and improving the economy in our area. But it's a couple of things that, based on the survey, it's clear that jobs, shopping, vibrancy, commercial growth, restaurants, and more food opportunities is really where our residents want to see us focus our economic development efforts, it looks like. I'm going to throw in hotel just because we need that too, but and then the arts also was another area. I agree that it seems like the quality was rated low, yet the importance was a little higher, so some opportunity for growth. I think you probably pointed it out that a lot of that may have to do with the loss of Tour de Terrace and trying to figure out how to fill that void. But I agree with Councilmember Murray. We've done a lot of great work in improving our arts and events and cultural activities. I guess I will highlight the one I'm really we've talked about and looking forward to adding to the mix is the international fair of some sort. But I think that could help in a lot of, when we talk about arts and culture and improving opportunities there, but I think filling the void is probably our priority for figuring out how do we address Tour de Terrace, or the loss of Tour de Terrace. Affordability was another one. Clearly, we're all concerned. I guess I'm going to touch on a couple of different things that we need to be concerned about as we're in a couple of, and concerned about and thinking about, I guess, and figuring out how to address. Affordability, cost of living, housing, and health in general is an area that we need to be concerned about and figuring out how do we address affordability issues. Fiscal responsibility was another one, and they play off of each other. And this is where I really love to see us dive a little deeper in the fiscal responsibility, especially as we're grappling with budget issues ourselves and going to be looking to our residents to be able to help us address the budget challenges we're facing moving forward. What does fiscal responsibility mean to our residents? Does it mean what we've been doing in doing a deep dive into the budget and trying to figure out, what are the costs and expenses and how to pay for those? Does it mean cutting services? Does it mean how? I guess what I'm interested in is how, what do our residents feel about? How do they feel about paying for the services, the level of services, and how to, what does fiscal responsibility mean as far as addressing the budget challenges that we have, I guess. But another area of opportunity, recognizing both fiscal responsibility and affordability issues, is utilities is coming up. And on one hand, it was 84% important, yet 64% quality, and we're going to be having to address rates real soon. And so when we look at if they want better quality, if our residents want better quality, we're going to need to sell that. I guess we need to help our residents understand to get the better quality, we're going to need to be able to pay for that through our rates. And so being able to, I think, share that story is going to be important coming up as well. So anyway, just a lot of great information in here. Really appreciate the work you guys have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others, comments, feedback, questions? Councilmember Matsumoto Wright.
Thank you. Just on the people doing the surveys twice, when I forget that I've done a survey and sometimes a new link shows up saying, have you done this yet? And I go, oh, okay. And then I punch on, I press the link and it says you've already done this. So I wonder if that is something that can be added to our surveys to remind people. And it might be just that IP address, I don't know. But, and I'm not trying to do any surveys twice. I just forgot that I did it because I do so many. And they're constantly still giving me the reminders to do it.
Yeah, and actually, I should say, in that's really a really good reminder to me. In our technology, we have an option that we can toggle on or off that basically allows you to do a survey multiple times from one computer or not. And so for the NCS, we usually make that not possible. There are cases where, like, you're setting up a kiosk at a library, and you want as many people as you can to do a survey or something like that, where we toggle that so that you can do multiple surveys. So we do actually have that toggle. So from the same computer, you could not do the survey twice. But because it's anonymous, we don't. If you wanted to do it on your phone and your computer, it is possible. Unlikely. Again, very rare that somebody would do it twice. It's a long survey. And for the most part, it's not like where we get very concerned about duplicates is when you have something that is more like you're trying to develop a park and you have a lot of different community interests in what should go in that park. In those cases, we definitely lock things down a little tighter. But for a general community survey, telling the city twice that you think the quality of life is high or, library services are good is not generally, that impactful.
Thank you.
Or if you really want a water feature, I'm looking at the two of you. Any other comments, question, feedback? All right, then we will wrap it up with mine, and mine is purely selfish. I'm looking at slide 17, governance in Mountlake Terrace, and I just want to say whoever filled out the survey, thank you very much. I think I speak for the council that this slide means a lot to us, in particular the top two being treating residents with respect and treating all residents fairly. I don't think there's two better variables that I'd want to see at the top of a list when it comes to the government, particularly in this context, because I suspect you filled this out in the midst of the context that we're in now. You just didn't know how crazy it was going to get. That said, I'm also pleased to see that we were similar, but I would love to know if we ever got closer to being higher, which is promising because I see at least among the custom benchmark, we did have 4 spaces where we were higher. And it's not about being better than, it's just to remind us that we can improve. So with that in mind, just wanted to say thank you to everyone who filled that out. That's great feedback for us and tells us to continue down this path. That said, we will move forward. Thank you for your time and energy.
Thank you, Sonia.
And we will
One
move-
comment on that
Yeah,
is
please.
that it's very hard to remove the needle on those trust items. So the fact that you have 3 of them that went up from 2024, I think really should be celebrated. So glad to hear you celebrating them.
Well, that is deeply humbling. Thank you for sharing that context. With that in mind, unless there's any other comments, feedback, or questions, we are going to go ahead and move over to the presentation on community branding update. And that is with Sienna again, and this time also with Ryan.
I'm staying here.
Well, since you're taking a couple seconds, I'm going to pause and say, I love the carryover from the previous one to this one. So whoever did the sequencing, nice job. I do want to also say, since I keep calling us a destination city, how sad I was. We only had 6% of the people who agree with me, but whatever.
Yeah. No. Well said, Mayor, and good evening, Council. My name is Ryan Doss. I'm the Economic Development Manager here at the city. The first item on the agenda tonight perfectly teed up this presentation, I believe. Branding and the progress we've made. It's just one of those foundational blocks or puzzle pieces as we kind of try to build our economy here in Mountlake Terrace and focus more on economic development. So doing initiatives like these kind of add to our competitiveness. It adds to how visitors, businesses, investors all perceive Mountlake Terrace. But I'll leave the presentation tonight to Rachel Aziz from Altogether, our consultant, and let her take it away.
Wonderful. Hi all. So nice to see you again on the Zoom. And yeah, it was really fun to listen to the results of the survey and see how these initiatives tie together. I guess quick question, Ryan, should I screen share my own screen of the same presentation, or should I click through, or did I just tell you when I'm ready to move on?
If you can share, Rachel, I think that would be best, given Council's been provided with an entire slide deck, but many of the slides will be hidden just for some efficiency.
Yes. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Let me see if I can make you big. Well, hi, I'm Rachel Aziz. I'm the principal of Altogether. I know we have met before, but it's lovely to be here again. I know you have a lot to talk about tonight, so I'm going to try and give credit to everything that is in here, but also not speak to everything because I know there's a lot to go through. So quick reminder of what we're doing. As Ryan teed up, branding and placemaking are economic development strategies. It's really how a city tells investors it's open for business, how residents feel proud enough to recommend their town to a friend, which it looks like 88% of people are doing, and how a quiet stretch of sidewalk becomes a place worth lingering. So we're thinking about things like foot traffic and dwell time and business attraction and community pride and how all these things work together. Our timeline, we are closing in at the end of this process. So we are here at the kind of beginning of phase 3. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of what we did at the end of phase 2 in terms of the brand development and wayfinding and placemaking strategy. And then we have a marketing strategy and some guidelines and templates to make sure you can use everything. So we are nearing the end of our time together. Again, I'm not going to read through all of these, but just the deliverables from this process are in your packet, and things that are outstanding are highlighted in blue. So the brand system. You have seen a lot of the messaging already. I've put it in there so you see how this all works together, but I'm not going to speak to very much of it. What we've heard is that this feels true. We've made some changes based on your feedback, but that this is a place where everyday people build extraordinary things, where you're connected to everywhere, but rooted right here. We have 2 taglines that we are planning on using in different pieces based on community feedback. Connected to everywhere, rooted right here. And then for economic development, become part of our story. So you'll see that used in some collateral. And then we have different messaging for different audiences. So this is an example of resident messaging. And the goal is to have all these pieces of messaging so that communication staff like Sienna can, as she's crafting content or as Ryan's crafting content for businesses, have a baseline of material to work from. So this will be reworked and used in different ways depending on if it's on a postcard or a billboard or a one-pager, but really creating the language to help them tell that story is the goal of these. So that was quick messaging, and then into brand aesthetic. So we made some minor refinements to the logo. This was never meant to be a logo redesign process. What we heard from residents is that they really like your logo, but we did see some small opportunities for improvement, and this is just us being, designerly people. When we learned the gradient was added, somewhat recently, maybe 15 years ago, and felt like without that gradient, it felt a bit more timeless. We also balanced the shapes of it so that they held more equal visual weight, and rounded some of the edges to give it a bit of a human feel, and so that the base of the mountain sort of fits into the waves. We also are exploring different brand marks. So these are not things that would ever replace the logo on, a official municipal letterhead, but really giving more things for, communications team to use in flyers and postcards, more ways to sort of build that community pride through your brand. We learned through this process that you hadn't had a real formal outline of like, here are our fonts, here are our colors. There were some colors, but there were some variations. So in both of them, we built on what you had and added some. So there's this core color palette where the teal is new, as is the, I think the orange, and then giving more tints and shades so that the communications team has more to work from within that palette. And then what does this look like as we're designing materials? So whether it is a social media post or a flyer, these are based on the feedback we got from residents at the community open house in terms of a style that felt a little bit more of a human touch, still super clean, but felt inviting and warm. So I think the typography is doing a lot of work there. We also heard from our project team that we want to make sure it still feels timeless. And so we worked on finding some type choices that didn't feel too, cutesy, or that they felt like human, but not too trendy. Another part of our scope was looking at your neighborhood sub-areas and creating a distinct economic character, or telling the story of their distinct economic character. So creating that visual architecture and messaging to support future land use. So our deliverables were 6 simple brand marks for each of the sub-areas that live within the broader city brand, and some key messaging of personality about each of these districts. We were not scoped with the exact boundaries of these districts or the names of these districts. Those are things that the Plan Commission is, still talking about and discussing, and I don't think would drastically change any of this work. Where these would be used are things like light pole banners, which we'll talk about more later, developer recruitment, marketing support for some smaller nodes, and potentially an illustrated city map. So these are kind of the 6 marks for each of the sub areas. You'll see they all follow the same structure and are using the kind of fonts and colors from the project brand. Each has its own tagline and its own simple mark that goes back to the story that we're telling about that place. So again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but as an example, for Town Center, we're calling this the heart of the city with transformation underway. So this is an area that is becoming. It is community rooted, it is walkable, it is arts forward. And for each of them, we have an aspirational story. Mountlake Terrace is a town where people, parks, and play are at the center of everything, and Town Center will reflect that. People want to run into their neighbors, support local businesses, and gather for seasonal attractions and everyday encounters. This is an opportunity to build place, to lean into community-focused events and build spots to sit and stay a while, to embrace art and expression. So you'll see how that is quite different from Melody Hill, MLT's employment engine with an evolving identity, a place that is industrious, unpretentious, and forward-looking. In this district, we're thinking about trailblazing and innovation, and this being the innovation district in Mountlake Terrace with room for even more dreaming. That it's currently home to a diverse range of businesses and industries, but that it will expand to offer a full service work and play to residents and commuters. So for each of these districts, we have a bit of this aspirational story to go along with the marks. There's a lot here, so I'm going to keep going, but then we can talk back about all the other things that you might have feedback on. So next is wayfinding and streetscape. There are a couple goals that we want to think about as it relates to wayfinding. We want to mark arrival, let people know when they have entered Mountlake Terrace, especially as they step off the light rail or cross the city boundary or exit the freeway. We want to anchor the brand, so tie key destinations like Lake Ballinger and the Rec Pavilion back to the MLT identity so it reads as one connected place. And move people to what matters, so guide residents and visitors to the destinations, parks, and businesses that make this area worth exploring. We worked with staff to think about some priority locations. So this is not a all-intensive map of where every sign should go, but just like where are the big gaps and places where we know we need to we need to mark arrival better. We need to move people better. So you'll see some pins, the blue pins are gateway signs that we would recommend at the entrances to the city, like kind of main entrances. A lot of directional signs on 236 near the light rail, near the kind of the gateway district and the entrance to the community down there. And then district banners. So really thinking as we talked about the sub areas, not all of them need banners immediately. I would prioritize the town center area, the gateway area, the Lake Ballinger area, and the Melody Hill area in that order. So we're going to talk about signage concepts. A complete wayfinding system will include all of these different pieces, all these different signs that kind of work together to form a consistent language. So this is just a mock-up of what all the different pieces are. There's vertical monument signs, horizontal monument signs, identifier signs. We designed a couple of these in two different ways to try and get your direction on which concept you'd like us to design the whole family on. So these two directions show the look, feel, and material language, and then the full system will be developed based on your preference. So once a direction is selected, we'll develop those kind of designs for each piece in the family, so you see how the system reads as a whole. These are not construction-ready documents. Our scope was, what does signage look like that is on brand, not create design documents that then can be fabricated. So the next step from this would be to work with a fabricator to define exact locations, to get a better, real budget estimates, to develop kind of structural details, final engineering. There's a lot that still needs to be done to get a sign installed. But the goal here is once you're ready to install signs, to make that investment, that you have a design package that you can use. So the first concept is kind of takes that Pacific Northwest vernacular that we see in the community with these angled wood beams. So this is using a Western red cedar, which is a durable wood that is used a lot in signage. We have some details like hand-carved reliefs that could be kind of carved into the wood with a CNC router, and then paired with these bold powder-coated steel panels and some channel lettering, which means it just has a little bit of depth. So this is showing a vertical gateway sign, an identifier sign. You could use color, like blue being more civic signs or welcomings, and the green being more parks. And then also a wayfinding sign, so directional sign, more for pedestrians in this instance. We're sharing two concepts. Of the two, this would probably have a lower fabrication cost. They're just a bit simpler. I still think they're very nice, but working with wood, it is a natural material. It's going to move and change. You're going to need to retighten the screws and refinish things. And, that says 5 to 7, it's pretty moist there. So you wouldn't want to talk to the fabricator, but this is your option that is lower upfront cost, will require some continued investment. Direction B is a higher upfront investment, but really would be designed to last without very much maintenance. So mostly due to the materiality. This is showing a stone base and then Corten steel as another kind of key component of the design family. So that's that steel that has the rusty kind of patina, and that kind of ties into a lot of the architecture that we see in the community, uses a lot of that orange color. It's paired with the powder-coated steel again. I think this blue is such a bold kind of identifier for the city that I would want to lean into. There's lots of nice examples of the Corten steel having letters laser cut through it. So you sort of see what's behind it, and it's a really sharp look. So again, I'm going to just keep going through the whole presentation, but this is something that I definitely want to come back to because there's two kind of distinct options that I both feel like Mountlake Terrace, but require a bit of thought in terms of which you'd like us to build into a full system. And then streetscape ideas. So we're not creating a streetscape plan, but we want to think about how can your streetscape tell the story of your brand and kind of tell them what type of place they've derived in. One is planters and benches. So we want to really embrace this idea that this is a place for people to linger, that the brand is built on this idea of slowing down and bumping into a neighbor and staying a while. And so we want to encourage future investments in street furniture to really make those moments easier. So as future streetscape projects take shape, consider more modular systems. So this is a specific system. I'm not saying you need to invest in this specific system at all, but just in systems where you can kind of move different pieces and create these moments of planters and benches and movable tables to create those moments of interaction. I do think, even though, not the only way of having your brand on something isn't just having your logo, the bold colors, the wood, the geometry feels like in the same vein as your brand. And so also things to look for as you are thinking about future streetscape investments. Similarly, would want you to think about intersection and crosswalk art. Painted intersections make a place feel alive, more human, and more cared for. There's a lot of studies that show this, that there's fewer crashes. It's a bold design and intersection is a low-cost safety intervention that also happens to be beautiful. So again, just a quick mock-up of what that might look like. This is not saying the only way to do it, but another way to show that you've arrived at a destination. We have outlined a couple priority intersections if you wanted to move forward with something like this, where you'd have, the higher pedestrian traffic crossings and also places where placemaking plays an important role. And then I know you have some wonderful utility box art. I think there is a room to expand that, and I know there's interest from the Public Art Commission on that. Some guidance is to lean into more hand-rendered illustrations to align with the brand. So native flora and fauna, the contrast of the infrastructure with the nature scene is really what makes this work. And that sort of differentiates from future public art guidance that I'll share in a few. But a consideration that I would like to share is just that even though these are printed graphics, that having them developed by illustrators or, artists who are working in a more painterly style makes it look like a handmade piece of art versus just like a vinyl wrap. So I think really treating these as opportunities for public art, and we'll speak more about that, like what does that look like to find opportunities for public art in your community? I think these are important ones. We also developed some kind of first draft of street pole banners, what it might look like to have a set of 2 banners. So these would go on either side of a street pole. So you would have one on each side, and one would be Mountlake Terrace, one would be your district. So in this instance, we're using Town Center. We're expanding what the visual language of this brand looks like with the bold shapes mixed with these kind of scenes and hand-drawn line work, and then using the teal color here to reinforce that identity of the Town Center area. So those are some different streetscape concepts as they relate to the brand. And then there are a lot of placemaking concepts in here. Love to kind of throw spaghetti at the wall moment and see what sticks and see which of these you'd be excited to pursue. I'm not going to talk through all of them. But we really want to use public art and programming to tell people where they are and what kind of place this is. So we have, I think, 9 different concepts organized around these 3 themes. Everyday extraordinary, so kind of this idea of neighbors and arrival and native plants. Stack stories, this idea that the city's logo is stacked and so is its history, and then creating a place where you belong. So I'm going to share a couple of these that I'm excited about, but there are a lot more in your packet. And again, this is not saying that you should immediately do all of these. It's sort of like, what are the ones that excite you, that there's funding for, that you could get a grant for, that there's public support to just get a bunch of volunteers and do on your own, because I know that's the kind of place Mountlake Terrace is. So one that I am excited about that sort of ties back to the utility boxes is investing in murals that tell the stories of the people of Mountlake Terrace. All of your neighbors have beautiful nature murals. They're really lovely and they're not unique. On the other side, the murals featuring people are innately really unique because people are really unique, and it can show the depth and diversity of this community's residents, and that's what sets this community apart. So a short-term way to do this, there's a company called the Inside Out Project. I'm sure there's other companies who also do something like this, or a way to figure out how to do it yourself. But essentially, they take a picture of people at a community event, print it on a plotter printer, and then we paste it on the wall and create this kind of beautiful grid of pictures. It's a low-cost, high-participation moment that activates the space. From a permanent perspective, you could commission a mural series featuring real residents, each by a different artist. You could, nominate subjects by neighbors or draw from longtime business owners. Either way, we think that, we know that this is a place that was built by everyday people, and telling the stories of those people is a really wonderful way to celebrate that. And I would seek muralists with experience in unique portraiture. I think, you live in a region full of artists. I think finding artists also that have this particular style can also help direct you to certain types of artists if you're putting out a call. So something to consider for that. And the rubber ducky. So we visited the Rec Pavilion, and I'm sure many of you know they give away rubber duckies, and it just hit us as like, this is a perfect symbol for Mountlake Terrace. Not saying that you need to create a mascot, but sort of just like an Easter egg that you lean into. Whether it's stickers or swag or just like the occasional duck in the planter, that it is sort of this quiet acknowledgement and playfulness that really kind of balances some of the history in other ways. It's small but mighty. The duck is, the land, water, and sky is where the duck lives, which is the same as your logo. And it's unpretentious and cheerful. So, some ideas are, having the giant inflatable duck at National Night Out, having a duck race in Lion Creek, having hook-a-duck games at events across the city. It's just one of those things that, again, you don't need to make it your official mascot, but it can just be something that you do and maybe people will catch on. Another idea that we were excited about is community totems. So commissioning totem poles or cedar carvings from Indigenous artists. So a totem tells the layered story of the land, and that really ties to this idea of those stacked stories. There's a couple places that we thought could be good locations for this, particularly 236 and 58th, where you have this kind of open space and a vertical element there would be really nice. And these should be done in partnership with local tribal artists from the very beginning to really honor their presence in the community and region as well. Another idea is a yard that says hello. So this is an idea from a group out of Minneapolis that created this model called Friendly Fronts. So it's essentially giving residents a kit or a how-to guide to make their front yards more welcoming. This could include movable seating, a little free library, yard games. You could provide a simple playbook, maybe some supplies, and then people take it from there. And this really fits with the brand because this is a place where you know your neighbors. And so helping to give people the tools to foster that connection creates this social fabric. I think this is my last placemaking idea, but these MLT blocks is the idea. So you could create these, we love the way that the letters of MLT sort of fit together, create these letter forms, whether they're, CNC cut or 3D printed. You could have a community paint day, or it could be part of the Friendly Fronts kit. Residents could finish their own. You could have artist editions or civic scale ones, similar to the MLT that is in front of Espresso Break. Over the time, the goal is that the city would fill with these, and each of them would be unique, and people could make them their own. So again, this could just be an idea that maybe takes root when someone sees it. Maybe someone is into carving wood things and starts making them and selling them on Etsy. We heard that there was some question about but where could we do public art? We don't have enough space. We don't have anywhere where public art is suitable. And I want to sort of challenge that there are lots of spaces. They may not be publicly owned, but they could be ideas that happen in partnership with, another organization or a private business owner or entity. So these are just a few that, we saw around town, but any fence, chain link fence, concrete wall, side of a business is an opportunity for public art if there's an idea and a will and a partnership to make that happen. And I know that in our last conversation, we talked about how are we engaging young people in this initiative? Their voices belong in this work. And it felt like the branding piece didn't give the right levels for people to engage in, or wasn't going to be a meaningful place for feedback. But this really could be asking young people about, where they spend time, where they wish they could spend time, what would make a space feel like theirs. So we're planning on giving staff an engagement toolkit, a set of worksheets and visual boards that, city staff can run during club meetings or class periods or after school events that would show these placemaking ideas and have a simple way for students to respond, as well as give more open-ended feedback. And that feedback will then be folded into the final placemaking guidelines so that there would be amended ideas or additional ideas from students. So looking forward, the couple things that are outstanding is the marketing strategy. So a roadmap with near and long-term moves for business attraction, visitor draw, and community pride. We'll think about channels and your key performance indicators and what does it look like to implement a marketing strategy. And then we would reconvene the project team for another check-in on what that looks like and their feedback on that. And then really handing things off. So making sure that this is a brand and ideas that you can use, whether it is collateral templates in Canva or a digital asset library, a staff training session. We want to make sure that you all feel equipped to carry out this work as we move forward. So that is all I've got. I'm excited to chat with y'all and hear your feedback.
Outstanding. Thank you for your presentation. Questions, comments, feedback? Mayor Pro Tem, I think.
Nobody else wants to go. All right, I'd be happy to go first. Thank you. First of all, wow. I am really, really excited with what we're putting together and the work that you guys have done to move us forward. I think it's fantastic. First of all, just recognizing the need is, I mean, we just saw from the last survey, community survey, that economic development is a top priority for our residents, and that there's room to improve. And this is what gives us that direction to help us move the needle. Utilizing branding, the branding and the messaging is going to be critical for putting together the next step with the marketing strategy and how we're going to tell the story to our residents and to businesses, to potential investors in our community, and to visitors. And I think that what the framework that you guys are presenting here and sharing with us, based on the feedback we've received from our residents, from council, from our staff. Great job, by the way, great input and great work. And how you've organized it and presented and shared it in this presentation is amazing. I do want to highlight a couple of areas. So there's the marketing strategies, that kind of the next steps, and then implementing it. The other piece of it is placemaking. And I want to emphasize how important placemaking, how pleased I am that placemaking is part of this strategy, part of this program that we're developing. Creating a sense of place is absolutely critical for how, especially as we grow, and making sure that our residents feel comfortable and continue to rate this as a high-quality community and a place that they want to live in. But it's also critically important for reaching out to investors and the type of businesses that we want to attract here into Mountlake Terrace. And creating that sense of place is really important. But it's also, knowing what we want in that sense of place is important to be able to work with the kind of investors that we want to bring to the community, to help give them the vision and idea of what our vision is, what we want, and what we want from them, and how they can help contribute to creating the sense of place that we want. I did want to highlight a couple of the strategies in the placemaking that I love. I think they're all great, and I love to do a lot of them. And I think there's opportunities, by the way, for Jeff. Where's Jeff at? And Gary, when we talk about investing, most of these are capital investments, capital improvement investments. So as we're looking for, on one hand, general fund budget, we're struggling with financing, right? But we have opportunities in our capital budget to be able to make strategic improvements in our community. And so when we're looking at developing parks, think about, is there an opportunity to do some placemaking as we're developing our park strategy and looking for funding for our parks? And for instance, the totem poles might be an opportunity, or certainly the sign making, but the seating and places to seat, perfect for the parks, right? And then when we're talking about our streets and looking at at that side of things, making sure that we're incorporating some of this placemaking strategy into our vision, our plans for how we're developing our streets. So just be thinking about that for anybody that has hands on the capital budget dollars. Here's an opportunity to guide those dollars and how we want to use those dollars. I'll raise also the 1% for the arts is another fund that we have an opportunity to strategically utilize to help us address a lot of these placemaking strategies. I love the murals. I mean, again, there's a lot of great things, but I really want to highlight the murals. And I love the slide that you showed, because I hear the same thing as far as Well, there's no place for it. Well, there is. There's a lot of blank walls in this community, and there's an opportunity to fill those blank walls with murals. And so I really appreciate you highlighting some specific ones. There's more out there. Let's find those blank walls. Let's figure out how to get them filled. And when it comes to murals, just anybody that's interested in murals, a great example is, and you showed some great pictures there, but Google Nubian Village, Egypt, or Aswan, and see the pictures that come up. There are some, one artist did all of that, and I was joking when I was there touring there, I would love to fly him in, and I mean, and just give him an opportunity to go wild here in our community. And but anyway, I think there's a great opportunity to be able to fill our blank spaces with some great murals. And I love the idea of people of Mountlake Terrace and turning those into some beautiful work throughout their community. And then the light rail welcome, I think, is important also. I think really highlighting the light rail station and utilizing that as an opportunity to welcome people to Mountlake Terrace. I would love to go on, but I will stop there and again, just say thank you for the great work you guys have done. This is more than I was hoping for as I've been asking for this for 10-some years. And so I'm just really, really pleased with the direction this is going. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Page.
Thank you, and I'll concede the floor to him because I went first to last. Okay. Rachel, thank you. With all the excitement that you just heard from Councilmember Wall, but you had me, and then you got to slide 77, engaging the next generation. And that is what gave me the goosebumps. And because I think that is probably, in my mind, and maybe you did it on purpose, but to me, I think this is the most important slide that you have. And all I could think of is over the last month or so, I've been asked to step in front of young folks between the ages of 14 and 24. And as a matter of fact, this coming Sunday, I'm talking to a group of 18 to 24-year-olds. And the question that everyone's asking is, show us ways to have our voices heard civically. And this is what this slide talks about. So thank you for that, and any ideas that we can drum up. And a bunch of them went through my head, and I'm sure the rest of the council is thinking the same way on how we can actually do that. But some of the other things that I really, really, really enjoyed, and the first thing that I wrote was, when we're looking at all the various different things and ideas that you're putting down. And I know there's a lot of us thinking, dang, how much is that going to cost? And all these different projects. And I wrote the question, and this is just a thought, can any of these developers that we're trying to attract, any of these builders that we're trying to attract, could they do some of this stuff that we're asking, that some of these ideas? And again, I ain't trying to cause no trouble, but maybe, with some cost incentives, that allows them to do if this is done for them. But, just that was the first thing I wrote down. I like the yard that says hello. I really do. I really like and I say that kind of selfishly because where I live, anybody that's been around my place, on the top of 228th, where, no matter what you do, you got to climb to the peak of the hill. That's just what we do. We have our yard that says hello. We got a big bench that's underneath the only shade on the street. And we have a water trough for the dogs. And people tell us all the time, thank you for that. And we see people all the time just sitting down, relaxing on that bench because they had to climb that hill either east or west. So I think that's like, and to get the neighbors to do that, I think, and the idea of, well, here's the tools, here's the way to do it, now go at it, and that's community engagement. I also liked, when I thought the people of the MLT murals, it made me think of when Sound Transit was going in, and what they did was, they did exactly that. They went and found people throughout, Linwood and MLT and Seattle and Shoreline and put those murals up. of everyday people, that was in the station to welcome, folks in. So I think that's a great idea. And the last thing that really jumped out at me is the neighborhood identification. We've got these different neighborhoods, and they all have their own identities. And I think of Shoreline, where every community, every neighborhood is labeled, is identified, and then those people in those neighborhoods identify themselves within those neighbors. And if you look at Shoreline now, a lot of the development that's going on is based upon those neighborhoods. It's all different wherever you go, but it's based upon their neighborhoods, not that they're trying to distinguish themselves away from the city, but to show that their neighborhoods are part of the city. So I really like that idea also, okay? That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Rachel. Appreciate the presentation. Thank you, Ryan and Sienna, for all of your work. I would echo excitement that we're here, that we're moving this forward, and just appreciate all of the engagement and work that's gone into getting us this far. I think big picture is how I'm trying to look at it, and I'm sure lots of folks there's a lot of subjective, pieces of information here, and it's hard to make everybody happy. And so I want to name that and recognize that that is part of this body of work, right? But I think when you stand back and take a look at the big picture of what we're trying to accomplish and does it move the needle in trying to accomplish the things that we want to do, I'm really excited that I think that it does, and I'm hopeful that it does. And again, I think we heard our community in that, community survey, and yes, kudos for the agenda lineup. We're trying to do the things that we can do where we have levers to understand and then move the needle on them, and economic development and our brand is a big part of that. And I also think it's a big part of, I know one of the concerns we saw was, this idea of losing the feel of Mountlake Terrace as we grow. And I appreciate that there was lots of intentionality as we were building this plan to preserve the things that people care about, what is meaningful to them in our community now. How do we continue to ensure that those are things that carry through over the years and as the community changes and grows. I did have a couple of questions or just some question comments, and so would love to just, and I don't necessarily need answers on all of them now, but I feel like if I don't share them now, I never will. So a couple of just in the audience slide around businesses. It has kind of it talks about customers who become regulars, regulars who become neighbors, neighbors who become your biggest champions. I guess so they become your customers and your regulars before they're neighbors. I don't know, I guess neighbors to me feels like it would make sense to have that be first they're your neighbors, then they become your customer, and then they become your regular, and then they become your champion. I don't know, for me it just felt like, I guess I was a little confused in reading it. I was like, are they then moving to Mountlake Terrace after they become the regular? I guess I wasn't sure what the intention was there, but first time I read it, I was like, it made me think, and maybe that's good, maybe that's some of the intention, but I mean, if you have comments, I would be welcome, I can stop, but also I will just say for me, that was something where I was like, how did that happen? So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm going to flag that with Christian on our team, who is the writer. I now that you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that is kind of funny. So I'll get her feedback on that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was going to say it's just one of those things where I was like, another one is for the audience for developments. And I will say, I think this is particularly developers, sorry, not developments. And I think it's particularly important as we drive forward the marketing. I still have some concern about kind of the laid back vibe of some of our materials. And I think particularly when we say we're not looking for the fastest build, that worries me that it feeds into a perception that Mountlake Terrace is hard to build in and it's a slow place to develop. So I will just name that word, not looking for the fastest build. I wonder if that doesn't offset some of the wonderful things we're doing around building this vision and understanding of what it's like to work here. Yes, we want intentional, and I appreciate that we called out intentional, not sleepy, in part of the documentation. And I don't want there to be a misinterpretation that sleepy or slow is where we are and want to be. So I guess I will just caution that read that way a little bit to me, so.
No, that's a great comment, so I appreciate that, and that's why we want to bring this forward to you all to catch things like that and make sure we're conveying the right message. So I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
just little tweaks. And then I just had one question about the Melody Hill slide. It uses, one of the keywords is workshop, and I wasn't sure if that was just a placeholder or if that was actually something we associated with Melody Hill, that I didn't know what the workshop in Melody Hill was.
No, I think it's the, oops, sorry, I just shared the wrong thing. The idea that this is like a workshop for ideas, that like a workshop is a place where you explore different things and try new things, and that you can, that's what this area is meant to be. And so I understand that I also struggled with this word because in the context of like forward looking, workshop feels like a place, but the goal was for it to be more of like a workshop is a place where you can try ideas, and that is core to the personality, but understand that like it's a different type of word than the others, and that reads off.
Okay, yeah, no, that's okay. I appreciate the explanation. I do understand it. Now that you've explained it, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, Innovation District, workshop, yeah. Like, I get it. So thank you for the clarification. You asked for feedback around the signs. I appreciate the signs. I like both options. I guess it's a little hard for me to give feedback given I don't know, I don't have ideas on cost. I mean, that's a real, so I think it's important to move forward with additional signage sooner rather than later. I also recognize that we have budgetary constraints, and our budgetary planning process often takes many years. I would prefer to spend money on durable, like if it's going to be cheaper in the long run, I would rather make the investment in ourselves. But I also think if the difference is 10x and it's a delay of 20 years to get signs up for, kind of the higher cost materials versus something we could do in the next 5 to 7 years, I would choose, option A. So I guess I don't have specific feedback on you because I don't feel like I have enough context to make that decision. I think both sets of signs look very nice, and I think both would be very exciting. I think signage, period. Here's the thing, I think that is additive, and regardless of where we land, I think is going to make our community easier to navigate. I will say I'll make a plug for gateway signs at 220th. I think we're missing an opportunity if we are not establishing on our busiest traffic corridor that people are coming off the freeway in Mountlake Terrace. I think the wayfinding there is important as well, but I think it's important people know they're driving through Mountlake Terrace and they don't just think they got off the freeway and they're in Edmonds or wherever they may be headed to. So I guess I would just name a plug for that.
Yeah, I
so.
appreciate that is another important point for a gateway sign. Thank you. I can add that.
I love all the streetscaping and placemaking ideas, and I would love to figure out ways how to do all of the things. So, I think there's been lots of talk about that, so I won't. Yes, that's where I feel generally about streetscaping and placemaking. I think we need more of it. I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Walz. It should just, I think it gives really good ideas that should be incorporated into our planning, whether that is parks planning or whether that is comprehensive planning or whether that is the work that our commissions are doing. I think it gives some really good concrete things to look at, which I think sometimes is the hardest part, right? It's like, we know we want this outcome, but how do we get there? And I think this gives viable pathways and plans to get there, which is super exciting. So just thank you for all of the work. I'm excited to see it move forward, and I'm excited to, I'm just very excited. So thank you.
Councilmember Matsumoto.
Thank you for all your feedback. It's really
Thank you very much. I just have a few things here. I don't want to go too long on this, but the murals, yes, we do have a lot of empty space out there, but I just saw some good examples of apartment buildings in the Seattle area where you don't have to just paint a building. You can put art on that building as you're painting it. And the one in the International District has waves, the Japanese waves in blue and white. And then on Yesler, as you're going into the Central District, there is a new building, and it's got, on the corner, it's got some art going up the side in a different color. a bright color. And I'm thinking, that is very simple, and the developers can do that, and it adds art, and it adds a lot of character to the neighborhood. The other, the totem pole, I've been wanting a totem pole in this city for I don't know how long. We are on Salish land. We should be honoring our Native American heritage here, and we don't have any Native American art in this city, so, except for. Well, his house, yes. But yes, we can add more. The rubber ducky thing is a great idea because it's nice to have a mascot. But in the past, we have the bear in front of the library, and we were talking about putting bear prints all over the city. Remember that? And apparently, we didn't have the money to do it, and it kind of died away. But I think that that's still something. You could probably have a bear print, and then whoever's going to sponsor that, like it could be Aaron Murray and family, right on that bear print. And it will be bear prints walking all over the city in the sidewalks. And we can put it in the new sidewalks that we're putting in. But there's a lot of good ideas from the past and some good ideas in the future. We didn't know that these flowers were going to be so popular. We didn't know that that would be what Mountlake Terrace, like with Seattle, the Space Needle. You can see any pictures of a building in Seattle, but people won't know what city that is until you get to the Space Needle, and they go, oh, Seattle. And so now we have our flowers. We don't have any pictures of any places in the city where you can just say that's Mountlake Terrace until you get to the flowers. So anyway, so I really think that this was a great thing to do because we really need to get, because people still don't know where Mountlake Terrace is, even people who live here their whole life. And then my friend who decided to just take a trip north to Mountlake Terrace and Linwood to see what the light rail had to offer, got off at Mountlake Terrace and didn't know where he was. There's nothing that says you're in Mountlake Terrace. There's nothing that says that empty lot is going to be something. On the other side, he sees trees. And then you get to Linwood, and he was even more lost than Linwood. So it is something that I'm glad we're starting. Thank you for all our staff and for all the vision and so forth. But we're getting little steps at a time, and I know it's going to cost money, but we're going to have to put that into our budget and our plan. And then I'm with the idea of getting the signs done fast for the first, because otherwise, if we wait for the expensive signs, we're going to wait 20 years. And we need to get those signs up. So get the signs up, because we need to have placemaking. People have to know where they are and how to get to town center. Thank you.
Councilmember Sonmar.
I just ask, it says handoff, so now we're done with this is the project, or?
No, that was just looking ahead. Yeah, so the handoff will occur in July, I believe, from the consultant's work to city staff.
And I'm not trying to be rude, but I've seen a lot of this before, and I can show you the presentations on it before. There were some new things that I liked a lot. A lot of things haven't gone into places because there was no priority of what would go first. Murals are lovely. We've talked about those for years, but why we haven't done them is, and it was just out on Facebook, how the graffiti over by the transit station, people were betting on how long it would take to retag it. And so, and with all this artwork, since I have a mother who's an artist, she always says art is not free. People spend their lives creating art, so art is expensive. Everyone always thinks that people will donate different things, which they might, but, and then, investing in the flagpole signs, we had those for many years, and eventually they have to come down. So they're something like Aaron had mentioned, they're not something that's permanent, maybe more of an investment piece, like the signs would be a good idea. And I just noticed like some incomplete sentences, and one of the things is we can't assume that certain neighborhoods understand what is supposed to be going on. And one of the things that I'm real critical growing up here is I don't like Mountlake Terrace being portrayed as cartoonish, because we spent so many years trying to dig out of that. For those who haven't lived here, Mountlake Terrace was not the place to go. And so being very prideful of the city, I like not cartoony. And so like the emblem was created by Terry Gordon, who was a Mountlake Terrace resident, and she lives in Edmonds now. And just the before and after, I know we highlighted it a little bit before and after. I don't see a big change, and I would like to leave the logo alone. But the badges and the marks, since I'm a person who loves to write and look at fonts and different things, these kind of would look dated to me after a while. So I would, and a little cartoonish. So I like going with like strong, prominent colors. And one of the colors that stood out to me was the tints, and it's the second one in. We painted all our hydrants that color, and everybody hated those colors of our hydrants. And there's still some out there that are peeling off. But there's little things like that. And I'm just kind of going the opposite way. Inviting people into yards is wonderful, and it's really nice that you do that, but I don't know if the city should promote that because there's some liability issues with that, inviting people onto your property. And, you know, if you're doing it very strategically, but if the city's actually buying kits to give to people to put in their front yard, I'd just be a little concerned with that. And then this one right here, I love colors and fonts. So to me, I didn't know that was even City Hall. I kind of had to really bury myself to look, and it would be nice to have the colors brighter and the font where the white space is, which is the clouds, so you would even know. But I know Aaron pointed some of that out, and I thought those were good points. You kind of have to tell the builders why you want them here. 4 square miles everywhere, projects matter. If I'm a builder, I'm going to say, well, that's nice. I just want to build where I can make a profit. And so I think enticing a builder, and we've got some old representations of that, if we created templates for going out to show builders on that before, and we had actually pamphlets that worked really well. I like the idea, if you ask most people, they don't know where they live. I actually live in Glenmore, and that was named Glenmore when it was first built, but we know, if I ask my neighbors, they probably won't know where they live in the town center. So I'm wondering if we could kind of prioritize some of these to make them things that are long-lasting and an investment, because we're about to talk about the first quarter budget. And I think that when you asked about the signs, Park and Rec is always asking about signs and looking into those. And some of the signs that we do have at all the entrances are nice. And maybe we keep on with what we already have so it doesn't look hodgepodgey all over. And then like street signs, this is really nice. I mean, there's not much of a difference, but I wouldn't go out and replace some that don't need replacing, only the ones that need replacing. The utility box, we've started on that, which is nice. The street banners, maybe I would do just 236, and knowing that they'd only have like a 5-year lifespan. The rubber duckies, I don't, sometimes I kind of want to giggle, and sometimes I don't know if that's too cartoonish, but I think what we've talked about for years, and Kyoko brought it up too, is we are trying to promote art in our city, and if we use things that are like the bronze footprints of Georgia Gerber, who is a renowned, marvelous artist, and everyone could envy those bears out there, is if we did certain things that would mark, if we want to be, I know people have been saying it for years, a designated city, what are we going to promote here? If we just put signs up all over, but what if somebody comes into the city at the light rail, what are we going to direct them to? So we have to be very functional with what we're going to put signs out there. Linwood has put out tons of signs that have all these little things that point here and there. And if you drive by them now, they're all dirty and some are broken. and there's so little, you can't even read them. As you get older, it's even harder to read. But overall, it's an interesting plan, but prioritizing priorities and the cost, I think, is huge. But other than that, they're all very interesting, and I like the comments everybody had, but it boils down to a lot of cost.
Any others, comments? Oh, did you want to respond? Sorry.
Yeah, no, happy to. No, thank you for that feedback. I think that's very helpful. And, you know, it's our charge after we're done with the consultant on this of, you know, being strategic with how this is implemented and, you know, finding grant funds for different projects, using the capital budget to implement this slowly. But it's not, you know, street signs are a perfect example of, you know, we're not going to rip all of them out just to replace them with a new look. It's going to be thoughtful and strategic, and, you know, as signs are needing to be replaced, that's kind of how we would approach that in that specific situation. But no, I really appreciate your feedback, Councilmember.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And actually wanted to touch on Councilmember Page's comment as far as getting the investors, the developers to help pay for that. The other department I should call out is our community development department, as we're looking at our design guidelines and incorporating a lot of these concepts into our design work. And so that's, you know, not only when we're building out, you know, our own projects, but also looking to the development community as they're building their projects to incorporate that in. And I don't remember if it was Councilmember Matsumoto Wright or Page that mentioned, you know, as they're doing their projects, they can incorporate art and design and some of these ideas into their work as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. Again, this is primarily going to be looking at our capital budget and you know, one-time costs through our you know, the capital and through Parks and Rec capital projects and through the developers. And it's not going to be impacting so much of our general fund budget as it is incorporating it into everything that we're doing in our capital projects.
Councilmember Page.
And I just have one other thing that I meant to mention, and I think both sides of me alluded to it. I think when the city created their 20-year strategic plan, and it's a good 20-year strategic plan, I wasn't in this seat. I was actually a commissioner. But part of the strength of that strategic plan was that the developers of that strategic plan, they made sure that, you know, everyone was at the seat and had an opportunity to weigh in on, did everything get hit? The Arts Commission, the Parks Commission, and the DEI Commission. And I think that's important in some way, somehow, to make sure that we've already talked about how the arts and the 1% arts, I know the Arts Commission is going to talk about this. We talked about the parks. They already got things in place. You know, the DEI Commission, same thing. You know, we need to make sure that those principals have a seat at the table in some form as this is being put together, or did they miss it? Did you miss anything? Did we miss anything in any small form? So I think that's an important part to remember.
Any others, comments, feedback, questions? All right, seeing none, I will just say our Parks project manager walked in, is probably shocked to learn we're not even halfway to her presentation, which is to remind us, hey, it's been a long night.
And Mayor, if you don't mind, I'll actually jump in, and we have some important city business to conduct before we get to our Parks manager's item. Yeah. But I think it's the Pedestrian Plaza is a great example or opportunity to have that gateway signage and have that welcome to the like from the light rail station. So you can blame Jennifer for not tagging this one right after us, but just wanted to add that in there. So
duly noted. I will keep my, totally teasing the clerk. But in response to the time, I'll just keep mine simple. Echoed everything I heard. The excitement was awesome. I've been with the Mayor Pro Tem since financing. This is the most excited he's been all night. So I just want to say that was genuine excitement that you solicited from us. That said, I just will leave it on the things I didn't hear, which I really liked the specific messaging. I just wanted to re-echo that. Connected to everywhere, rooted right here. I love that. And as we go down, I did have, just to make sure we're not shooting ourselves in the foot, I get it. I went to school in a small town that was an actual city, but it's when we call the visitors and we say small town, big things happen here. I just want to make sure in the spirit of getting away from cartoonish and digging out of things that we don't actually put ourselves back in. We're not even a city, we're a town. In the spirit of, most people don't know what that really means. So I don't think you need to change it, but just be thinking along those lines. And then lastly, for me, because again, I think people covered what I wanted, the thing I wanted to make sure was getting out there was, I really liked the idea of the Western Bleeding Hearts being perhaps our city flower, if you will, selfishly, because I just learned that's one of my wife's favorite plants. But I also started looking at them, and I also just think, what a wonderful concept that we're a bunch of bleeding hearts, that we love our city that much, we even made our flower a bleeding heart. Which is really, again, going back to the earlier comments and making sure that we are doing our best to respect people, make sure they're heard and seen. So I'll leave it there unless anybody else has more comments. And again, just thank you for really an amazing slide deck. I pulled up 81. You should have seen the rhetoric in my head. But as you went through it, I was getting more and more leaning in, going, only 81? So in that regard, just great work.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yes, thank you so much. All right.
Thank you
Seeing
all
no
so
more
much for your
comments or
time and
feedback. Oops, sorry. Yeah, I was going to suggest we do a break, and then when we come back, we will get into the first quarter financial update, which I have reason to believe will go smoothly because it's the first quarter. So that said, it is 8:56 on my clock. How about we come back 9:05? Give you a whole 9 minutes. Oops, sorry, it's 57 now, 8 minutes. All righty, folks, welcome back. Thank you for your patience with us. We will now move to the presentation on the first quarter financial update with our finance director and senior accountant. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. So we're going to present the first quarter 2026 financial report. Before we start, I do have one hard copy if anybody's interested. Nope. Okay. Yes. There you go. So we'll go fund by fund, the budget to actuals, and then we have a debt schedule at the end, and I will turn it over to Artis Namati, our senior accountant.
All right, now on this first slide, I'd like to show you the format we're using for 2025. 26, yes. Apologies. But we're breaking things out by quarter. So the columns will correspond to the quarters as we go along through the year, totaling up to the year-to-date actuals and comparing that to the adopted budget. The percentage of the budget column will be your year-to-date actual divided by your adopted budget and then showing the remaining budget for the year. And when this slide only has expenditures on it, but when there are revenues, they should be positive if we're still collecting more than the budget or negative if they're collecting less. So that should align now. And for the general fund specific, we've broken down a slide for each of the departments, expenditure by objects in the top part, and then by program below. And we'd like to start with the city manager's office. One item, and yeah, if there's any questions, but we can move through. The only thing I will say is that a reminder that the percentage of the budget, we're a quarter of the way through the year, so 25% would be roughly what we'd expect for some of these items. Some of them aren't even throughout the year, though. Next department we had was community development, and the results are on the slide. There's no questions. We didn't have anything to point out on that one. Moving on to finance. For finance, we did want to mention that the services budget was at 35%. This is actually common throughout a lot of the departments, especially when we zoom in enough. The insurance costs for the year are paid once in January, essentially. So a large portion of those will get paid in Q1, and then we should see them even out back towards the end of the year.
I have a quick question, just for my knowledge. I realize that this is first quarter, 25%, but as you go through this, would it be possible for you to maybe highlight anything that typically maybe in the second or third quarter is generally historically a jump from, you know, to like a 35% or 40%? Because I realize some expenditures don't happen at the same time, at the same schedule, you know, each quarter, but, you know, say something that's 22% in the first quarter, would it be 40% in the second quarter, typically, historically, you know?
Yes, we'll add that into our feedback and try to incorporate that. All right, next department is Parks. There's only one department in the general fund for Parks. And moving on to next, we have Property Management. Instead of by program, it's by facility down below. And we did want to also point out the insurance costs, and that note will be on many of the slides. So I will stop mentioning it, but it does show why some of the services budgets are higher than the 25% mark. Yes.
Thank you. So recognize that insurance costs are, you know, primarily front-loaded into the year, but I guess still curious in terms of like our adopted budget for facility for insurance costs versus actual costs. It looks like we're at 172% of the actual budget for the fire facility.
Yeah, we really don't have much of a budget for the fire facility, and the insurance costs have gone up. We're allocating them a little bit differently. They used to be by department, and it just wasn't making sense. So the facilities are by square footage, and that's what we're kind of going by. So those are going to be a little bit different from what was budgeted in each department.
Okay. So
but overall, it should work out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to the next was engineering services. And we had nothing to say about on this slide, so if there's anything else, we'll move on to the next. Yes, please, go right ahead.
Thank you. So I guess just curious in terms of salaries and benefits, just because those tend to be fairly set, I guess I'm curious how we're at 37% of budget versus what we had budgeted.
So we have, which explanation was the one that came up the most? We did have a little bit of a reorganization in terms of who was charging to capital projects versus operating. And also, if an engineer doesn't have a capital, like a specific project to tie to, and we'll get to the capital funds later, you'll see that specific projects aren't at that phase, then their time gets charged more to general operating, like in this situation, the general fund.
Thank you. No, that makes a lot of sense. So does that mean, do we anticipate then that those projects are eventually going to move forward, and so later in the year, we'll have more of their time charged to capital projects than we expected?
Yeah.
Budgeted for? Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, next we have municipal court. And there's not much we have here on this slide either. Next have the police. And here, we did have a 33% in operations. We are down 2 people, so the overtime that is, taking for them to cover for that, and the insurance cost, which is going into operations as well, based on, is also a part of that 33%. This just lays out the transfers that are coming out of the general fund to help with the next slide when we go through the general fund as total. The transfers that have occurred in Q1 and the ones in the budget are planned by the end of the year. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm going to go back to the last slide really quick. I'm curious with the overtime and being 2 down, if those are roles that we've filled and we're working towards being fully staffed to avoid continued overtime at that level?
One of those positions is slated to be filled when we can find a suitable candidate. The other one is one that will probably be removed as part of the strategies that council adopted for fiscal sustainability.
So help me understand, if it's costing us more to not have those 2 positions, how permanently removing it saves us money?
Once that position is gone, then it will no longer be budgeted for.
Oh, I hear it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Love talking budget at 9:15. Thank you for connecting dots for me.
All right, now to the general fund budget. This is a culmination of all the departments we've seen before, also showing the revenues. We did want to point out that the property taxes are one of those items that are collected not evenly throughout the year. They're mostly done in the second and fourth quarter when the bills are due. And that we did actually get some prior year gambling taxes from the casinos that are in bankruptcy. During Q1, some late returns came in for last year. So that's why we have 58% of that budget collected, but it should even out throughout the rest of the year to be back to not normal, but not, it's not going to be below, well, I can't tell that by now, sorry. It won't be more than budgeted, probably. All right, now going to the individual funds, we have the Housing Needs Fund, which earned some interest, investment interest, and had no expenses during the current quarter. Next, we have the Recreation Fund. The standard item for the insurance has been added to the slide, but otherwise things are roughly at the 25-ish% for the expenditures. The general recreation is where the insurance is coming into play.
Actually, I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'm reading this right. This is revenues. And the youth programs, looks like it's doing well. 44% you've taken in already in the first quarter. Is that how I'm reading that?
44% of the budget, basically.
I guess I'm asking, is that income or is that expenditure?
That is income at the top.
Yes, that's income.
So, comparing as we go along will be the best I can say for that. I actually haven't looked at a quarterly report for how the ups and downs of these programs go. So as we fill this in throughout the year, we'll be able to see if there's summer programs that are being paid for early, and that's causing the spike. That is what we were brainstorming and trying to figure out when we were looking at that to see where the numbers might be coming from.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just actually wanted to run back to the housing needs and highlight the ending cash, ending cash and investments balance. So we have, in other words, we have $300,000 available in that fund. So that would be one to highlight for what is our plan on utilizing those dollars to be able to help invest into our housing needs and the challenges that we're facing on housing, and potentially also incorporating in the $1,409 and figuring out how we want to be able to help add to the fund balance and then be able to utilize that fund balance. What is our strategic plan for moving forward on that?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're holding that. We don't have a specific plan for those dollars because there may be an opportunity to partner with other South County cities and organizations like HASCO in order to put together enough money to actually build something. $300,000, unfortunately, is not enough to even build one unit. As we know, each unit is about $500,000 a pop. So looking for opportunities to partner with other jurisdictions with that.
All right, and this is the Solid Waste Service Fund. Currently, it just has the utility taxes coming in quarterly, and the solid waste exceptions are what the outflows for this fund are. Next, we have Street Operating Fund. There was nothing that we saw to highlight on this. What? Oh, other than the state shared revenues, there are some items that are really over or under, and they are basically budgeted by we take the state's budgeted numbers and put them in, and then it's just the actuals that come through. So that will probably be the same in the next budget process, where they will release their numbers, their budgeted numbers, and we will accept their budgets as the estimated revenues. But as you can see, this is what's coming in during the first quarter of this year. Next is the opioid settlement fund. We have the Scout program that's running through this fund. We had one invoice come in during Q1, and the judgment and settlements missed getting on the schedule by, I think, about a week. So we did get something that's going to show up in the Q2 presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just remind us on the Scout program where we're at. I know that we have concerns with being able to move forward with that program because of costs, but we are locked in for the rest of the year with Scout?
For the rest of this year.
Okay.
But that will be the last year at the current rate. So we're looking at other opportunities to continue that partnership with either Scout or another organization.
And just a reminder that South County Fire has a great crisis response program, and so one of the things that I think we'll be wanting to talk about is considering the budget costs of the Scout program and our potential for not being able to continue with that program, but also recognizing what a great asset to our community is to have an embedded social worker working with our police, figuring out how we incorporate South County Fire's program, crisis response program, into coordinating with our police as we move forward. So I think that'll be a good discussion item for the following years for how we're going to fill that void, but be able to fill that void, I guess, by relying on other services through South County Fire.
Yeah, we've been proactive about that with South County Fire Community Paramedics Program is the name of that program. And we have had discussions with them already just to make sure that we can maintain that service for our community.
All right, next is the hotel motel tax, which had the tax come in and the investments, and then one lodging tax grant for the quarter that was offered.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, just remind us again when that transition of our hotel is no longer going to be serving as a hotel, and when is that transition happening?
Sometime in the fall is the plan at the moment.
All right, so we will be continuing to collect hotel motel tax until later this year, so at least we'll continue building up that fund while we await a new opportunity. Where's Ryan at?
Yeah.
For a new hotel.
No,
Okay.
he got to go home. The planned transition is late summer, early fall.
$10,000 for the parade. Is that the grant money that?
So that 10,000 was part of the $50,000 that was authorized by the adoption of the budget, the LTAC money. And then I don't know off the top of my head what it was for. My speculation is that it was for the parade just because it's coming up here pretty soon.
I'm on LTAC, and we don't do it till the end of the year, so we didn't award any money in first quarter. So that's why I'm wondering, what's our policy for just taking the money out?
The way I've always understood the LTAC is it is throughout the year. Once it's awarded, then they turn in their invoices, so I'm not sure.
To get reimbursed.
Yeah, they get, yeah.
We didn't give, it says lodging tax
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, right.
$10,000, they'd have to itemize it all
Yeah.
out, so it would usually have.
I think the word grant kind of, we can take that out because it is a reimbursement for what was allotted to the organization.
So that is a reimbursement? So the parade money didn't come out of this?
We'll have to double check what that was for.
I was just, sorry, how long do they have to get reimbursed? It's not through, I mean, it's a certain time period. The whole entire year? Because then it would be, if they do their program in July, they'd have to have it, usually we give a allotted amount of time, because when we look at their LTAC, we want to make sure that they've put in all their expenditures and then been refunded for it before we provide any money. Otherwise, they're disqualified.
Correct. If they don't turn in their reimbursements, if they don't have their event or they don't turn in their reimbursements, we are unable to pay them after January 20th of the following year per the auditor's guidelines and the cash basis guidelines.
I'm sorry. Am I cutting you off? Oh, can I ask one other question? We had a left one question, and somebody needed, well, maybe I should ask that offline because it's a left one question, so I'll
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I was just wanted to clarify that the 50,000 in the budget is based on what was authorized by the LTAC and the council last year for this to be expended this year. And so so then as the expenses come in and we're reimbursing them, that will add up to the 50,000 over this year's period. But then LTAC will meet again later this year to allocate funds for the following year, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I was just reminded that that 10,000 was actually might not have been for the parade. It might have been for the Arts of the Terrace. So, but we'll look into that and verify that.
All right, the next fund on the agenda is the fleet. You'll notice that the reimbursements from other funds is at 7% of the budget. That's being caused by, we have the new fund set up for reserves for the fleet vehicles. So what we're now transferring is to this fund is only the operating portion of what was in there. And now the rest of the money is going into the reserve funds, and as vehicles are bought, the reserve funds will transfer the money here to pay for the vehicles. Next is information technology. The new fund we set up, I believe it started in 2025. Now we're getting into the enterprise funds. The sewer utility is first. There's no questions, we'll move on. Water utility is next. And then stormwater. next fund is street construction. Where we have broken down, down below now by project to help show where some of them are. The residual from last year, because we're cash basis, is what some of those other projects that don't have budget line items are. So they were budgeted in prior year, and we're just having their payments come through, or expenditures come through. Next is the Parks capital improvement budget. And the real estate excise tax. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just remind us historically, when do we usually see real estate excise tax revenues coming in? I mean, is that, can we expect that may, I mean, obviously it all depends on the economy and it depends on sales of property. But is there a historical trend that more sales happen, say, in the summer or later in the year that would cause this number to be a little low right now and maybe a little higher later?
There hasn't been a lot of sales recently.
Yeah.
So usually the sales are more in the summer, spring and summer than in the winter. And we do receive, this is unlike the property tax. Well, actually property tax we do receive every month, and this comes with the property tax in that same payment. But yeah, we'll see a little bit more in the summer, spring and summer.
All right, now, facilities constructions is the next fund. No questions. We move on to the enterprise construction funds, starting with stormwater construction.
I just wanted to mention that this is a little different from what you've seen before, because if you remember in the fall, we came to council and we opened up a lot of new funds. So we separated the operating from the construction from the operating funds, from water, sewer, stormwater, and also from the parks. We added the facilities construction, so you saw that as a separate fund.
All right. Next up is the sewer construction fund and the water construction fund. And we're going to close out with the planned debt schedule for the year. Most, if not all, of these have not been paid. They're be coming in throughout the year, and then we will give an update if there is any more drawdowns on the public works loans. Those balances could be different by the time we get to the end of the year. Any questions?
Questions, comments, feedback, additional questions, comments, feedback. Councilmember Sonmore.
Can I just ask, is the general fund deficit still at $4 million?
We have implemented a lot of the strategies that council has asked us to implement. We increased the development fees last week. On June 4th, we will be bringing the car tabs to you. A lot of the historical budget savings, those have already been done. I'd say 80% of those individual items have been done. The rest will be done throughout the remainder of the year.
And
we will be implementing the rest of those as part of the budgets that's presented to you for 2027 and 2028.
When are you doing that? Did you just say?
We're doing that now, and it's going to come to you for approval in November of this year.
Oh, but we were told the development fees don't affect the general fund at all. That's what they said. They were fully paid for when we asked our new person that came in.
The development fees come into the general fund.
She said it doesn't affect it at all. I can go back to my notes, but I remember, yeah, the general fund do not subsidize any of the fees, and so it doesn't affect the general fund at all.
That means we don't draw down from the general fund to pay for building permits. It's the reverse. It goes into the general fund, but it's not paid for by other mechanisms.
Because we can't make a profit off of it.
Right, but we can break even.
Right. And then my next question is, how many staff vacancies do we have currently?
That I don't know, but we would be happy to get that information to you when HR is back in the office tomorrow.
And then are we projected for our general fund ending balance of the year? Are we on target for that?
We'll actually be a little bit better than what the target is.
It's where it is?
I said we'll be a little bit better than what the target is.
Any others, questions, comments, feedback? All right, seeing none, I do believe you are free to move about the country. Thank you for your presentation and report. We will keep moving, and now we move to the review of the bid award for Westside Water Main Phase 2.
Mayor, can I just ask a question?
Yes, please.
I wanted to bring up because why I get so kind of picky with the and it's for like a new finance policy is what I'd like to see.
Wait for a moment. Do you need them here? Oh, never mind, sorry.
But I just wanted to bring it up because they did a nice job with the development consultation, but what happens is like every 10 years we go out, and we used to have this saying all the time that we'd have consultants' recommendations sit on a shelf, and that's all they do is sit on the shelf. So I'd like to see a financial policy where, since everybody liked it so much, that we do not have another consultation on the development plan for like another 10, 15 years. And because if a new council comes in and they want to hire a consultant and pay another $108,000 on a development presentation and, all the things that they did, that we would stop that and we would hand them that presentation to look at again, so we're not constantly paying for consultant fees on something, because it adds up over time. So if we do it like every 5 or 10 years at $100,000, it just constantly adds up, and that's why I think we should look at a policy that a council, of course, another council could not have it, but it would be nice to have what we use for consultants and have a timeline on when it comes in and when, it's able to be redone, because and I know I said I saw a lot of that before, because over the years I have seen a lot of that before, and it's not being mean or anything, it's just if a new council comes in and they want to have a development plan, we hand them the one that we had based on 2026, instead of them going out again and constantly spending money on a consultant to do basically, some of the work, some of the things do change over time, but that's something that can be done in-house too, to look at those changes.
Just to make sure I understand, so I want to make sure that we get you what you need. Are you talking about the comprehensive plan?
Fiscal responsibility or fiscal sustainability test?
No, the branding.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Economic development, marketing.
Yeah, I don't think anybody then, maybe even now for sure, would say, why would we do something and put it on the shelf? Those days should have long been over. So yeah, I would hope we're moving forward on those. Of course, economy and priorities matter, but nonetheless, I don't think anything awkward about what you've said. I think we should have yes, make sure these folks know this existed before they go reinventing wheels here. So that said, review the bid award of the Westside Water Main Phase 2.
All right, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. Gary Shimmick, your Public Works Director, here to review our bid award for Westside Water Main Phase 2. Now, the driver of the project is both aging infrastructure and growth. It's projects in the vicinity of 226th and 68th. And great news that our low bid was actually lower than the engineer's estimate, which is unbelievably rare these days across the county and the state. So hooray for that. So the low bid was $2,394,855 from Eden Prairie Construction. The total cost of the project is 2.9, and again, that's permitting, design, and such. But we have a real good ratio there of what soft cost to hard cost. Hard cost is construction, soft costs are everything else. 18 to 82%, so that's really good. You want to stay below 30% with your soft costs, and we're at 18, so that was very good. Work will begin if we seek approval for consent next week, 2 weeks after the contract is executed, so that would be in mid-June. Construction period is expected to last 6 months. And, we're with the last presentation from Cirque, just wanted to let you know there is a wonderful public works loan for this project, which we'll be paying back, but the interest rate is about less than 2%. So I'd like to seek putting this on the consent for the following week.
Questions? Councilmember Sonmore.
Just a really quick question. With contingency, I saw that you built some of that in because a lot of times there's a problem with unknown conflicts with utilities, existing pipes, and the ground soil. So is that why that's built in?
Excellent.
Like,
Yeah.
what is it?
Right. And you're
700,000?
can't remember the exact number, but I can tell you what we're going to do and what we worked on with Carolyn and are going to be doing for all our projects going forward. We follow a level 1 to level 5 estimate. The highest estimate, it's like 100% contingency when you're just planning, and then it ratchets way down, to about 10%, and that's what you're seeing here. And that's exactly for what council member mentioned for, especially underground, right? If something's there that we didn't get, there's a lot of potholing that hasn't been done, so hopefully we know what we expect, but if we run into something just, massive, that's what it's there for. And hopefully, ideas, we don't use it, right? So that's hope, but we don't want to be the other case, not putting contingency and then coming back to you saying, hey, we found something below and now we need to raise it higher. So that's kind of, hopefully we'll come under.
Excellent. Anyone? Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Gary. Appreciate the presentation and the work. Just a quick note, in our copy at least of the staff report, the funding sources and expenditure sources are cut off, and so.
Mine too.
Okay.
I don't know why that is, but if you go to the actual, at least I can do this in my software, the actual staff report where I fill in, it's all there, but when it prints, I don't know why that happened, so I'll work with Jennifer on that.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, I did try pulling up the PDF on our side, and it still is cut off on ours, so yeah, that would be, I was gonna say, the number, I mean, it's pretty clear based on the total and kind of how it's laid out, but I will just name it.
Mine penciled it in my paper because I saw that exactly right before.
All right, I appreciate it, that's all I had.
So sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to mention the same thing, but I did note in the financial budget impacts on their budget and sources, it does indicate that it Public Works loan and water fund. But yeah, having that in the above section would be helpful. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll correct that for the next meeting.
Yeah, formatting, we'll get it taken care of.
Any other questions, comments, feedback? All right, run now.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will now move to number, I got lost, 8. Yeah, I was like, where am I at? Review Perteet Agreement, Supplement 7 from Main Street Construction Management with our traffic engineer. Welcome, sir. Floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm John Merrick. I'm the city traffic engineer, and I'm bringing to you tonight Supplement 7 to the city's Main Street Phase 2 and 3 agreement with Perteet. So this supplement focuses primarily on construction management for the Main Street Phase 2 project. Just a little background, the original agreement was brought to council in January of 24. In February of 24, council authorized the city manager to sign the agreement. Since that time, we've had a couple of supplements added to it. We're now on to Supplement 7. Actually, last month, I brought forth Supplement 6, which was to kind of finish out the design and right-of-way acquisition portion of it. Now that we're moving closer to construction, we want to kind of nail down the construction management. So this supplement will incorporate construction management services into the existing contract. The project currently is under review at Washington State Department of Transportation. They're reviewing the project specifications estimates for it, along with the right-of-way certification. Once that's complete, we'll be able to go to add. We're anticipating that will occur early in August. So we're trying to get on board with once we're being able to start construction. So we need these construction services to kind of help us manage that. The services will include things like construction observation administrative services, or in other words, kind of they're going to be doing the inspection for the project and record keeping. They'll help with the coordination with utilities and other developers. They'll provide design support for emergent issues that come up during construction, and then provide geotechnical services and material testing as needed as the project moves forward. So all told, the supplement is for $1.2 million, which will bring the total contract amount up to $4.5 million. This portion was kind of anticipated early on, so it's within the budget for the project, but we kind of waited until the design and right away our acquisition were almost complete before we kind of brought this on. So we're looking to bring this to consent agenda item next week, and hope the council will support authorization of this supplement.
Excellent. Questions, comments, feedback? Oh, please, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, John. Nice to see you. Excited to see this getting closer to moving forward. Since we have you here, if you'll oblige me, I was going to say we had a very nice public comment. Were you here at the beginning of the meeting?
Yes, I was.
You were. Okay. We had a very nice public comment from a youngster in our community, plugging street safety, particularly at 236th and 52nd. And I know you and I have had conversations about that particular intersection and really the street before. And so I guess I would just maybe put a plug for an opportunity to come back and have some follow-up conversation about that. I think what I had noted before, and I think you were going to kind of take a look at as part of our ongoing work around traffic safety in the community, was I think what's happened is 52nd has become a popular way for navigation to send folks through our community, because you can go all the way from Shoreline, all the way at 52nd. You can turn, what street are folks turning on? 230th?
Yeah, 230th.
Yeah, so then they're going through 230th. We know there's high accidents as folks then cross 56th. And you can go all the way through our community as a pass-through without running into any lights or anything like that. And so a lot of navigation services are sending people that way, and people are going way too fast as they go transverse our community. And so I guess, like, I know you know that, but I guess since we had that comment today and you were here, I just wanted to make sure that folks know, like, we're aware.
Right.
We're working on those things.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, do we have a timeline for kind of follow-up on that conversation?
So let me just give you a little background. I have actually been actively working with Mr. Cross and another resident about traffic and safety concerns in that area. I was surprised that 52nd came up, because we've been working from 53rd to 56th, and I've done a lot of speed studies recently there. But the speed studies have shown on those streets is the 85th percentile speed on most of those streets is between 24 and 26 miles an hour, which means that 85% of the drivers are driving with about within or lower than 1 mile an hour of the posted speed limit. So from a traffic calming perspective, those streets would not typically rise to the level of I don't want to say meeting our criteria for implementing traffic calming measures. So we're looking for other things that we might be able to do that might not be physical devices. One such thing I'm looking at is maybe purchasing with the traffic calming funds some yard type signs that community members can kind of add to their, just to kind of help remind drivers, whether they're coming from the school or the rec center, to, hey, you're coming through a neighborhood. So that's one thing we're kind of exploring. I haven't completed speed studies on 52nd because that, at this point, because that wasn't the focus of what I'd been working with them on, but I'm happy to kind of do those speed studies. The other thing I would point out, I also looked at the collision history kind of in that area, and actually the collision history at those intersections is relatively low. The street that really had a couple collisions kind of that were of more severity were occurring on 232nd. I think that's because the light is there. And so looking at what that gets a little bit more traffic, and as you're getting closer to 56th, I'm wondering if people are probably maybe traveling a little bit faster. That's where we saw probably the highest speed was on. So I will continue to work with them. I'll reach out to Corey to make sure that I understand kind of his concerns, so that when we're looking at it and evaluating them, I'm kind of looking at the things that he's looking at as well. So
Thank you. I do appreciate all of that work, and we'll recognize, like, I want to name 52nd's a little bit different than a lot of our other streets because it's very wide.
Yep.
And I think that probably plays into speeds along that street. And I'll note, because I think it's important to note that collision, I think data is important, but I will say I was at Terrace Park prior to being here tonight, and I literally saw a car turn feet from a child who I was waiting for the child to cross the street. They decided that I was waiting for them to take a turn, which I'm not sure how they decided that was accurate. No one was hit, but did a child come very close to potentially a serious injury? Yes. And so, like, I recognize that collision data is what we have to work with, but I also recognize anecdotal data about, like, near misses and, like, the impact on folks navigating the community, particularly who aren't in vehicles, like, is real. And I think it's important that we're hearing, especially, I think this is not the first time that we've had feedback about that 52nd and 236 intersection. We had kind of guerrilla efforts to put flags there because we hadn't addressed as a city the safety in that intersection. So like, I'll just say I appreciate all of the efforts, and I think that intersection particularly, if we could do some work on making sure that we understand at least what it looks like, and I think then go from there, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I can take a closer look at that intersection in particular. And you're right, we have collision data that we use. It's really hard to quantify near misses, which is why I really like to talk to residents, because they can give me a perspective that I could stand out there for 3 days on end, and I'm still not going to see it like a resident who lives there 365 days a year. So
I appreciate all your work, John.
You bet.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions, comments, or feedback? All right, we're going to close that down. Run. We will now move forward and back to, actually forward, but back to Gary. Review ordinance adopting the McLeod Telecommunications franchise agreement. I'm turning into a pumpkin, people. Actually, before you begin, let's just call it. Can we get a vote to extend the meeting past 10 o'clock? At what time, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move to extend the meeting until 10:20.
Second.
Got a second? Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have done so. Please move forward, sir.
All right, thank you again. Gary Shimmick, Public Works Director, here to have you look at a new agreement with McLeod Communications. The last agreement was from 2015 to 25. Since that time, we've been working under the last agreement, even though it has expired, so this will be a new 10 years. Now, McLeod provides services to commercial clients only, and my understanding, it's in the Van Rye area, most of their clients. So this agreement is just really similar to what we did last year with PSE and this year with Forge Fiber, really to allow them to maintain, construct just their operations, which they have. And of course, they still need to get permits if they're going to do any construction, but this is just the blanket of how they operate. And again, I think council member had a question last time. It's no, we can't say no to this, but if there's something in the agreement that is not good for you, we can definitely go back and have that conversation. But this has been worked on by our legal counsel and theirs, so you're seeing the final document.
Thank you for that context. Any question, comments, or feedback? Seeing none, we will close it down. Thank you. And again, head out. We will now move to, thank you for your patience over there, let's go with review the bid award for the Pedestrian Plaza with our Parks Project Manager. Thank you both for your patience.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. My name is Donnell Dial. I'm the Parks Project Manager for the city, and I'm joined here with our Recreation and Parks Director, Jeff Betts. We're here to present 2 items tonight. We have one presentation, but we'll cover 2 items pertaining to the Transit Connection Corridor project. This is Phase 2 related to the Pedestrian Plaza construction. So we'll be reviewing the bid award for the Pedestrian Plaza, as well as a professional services agreement with Consor North America for construction management services. Here's our agenda for the evening. We'll cover council goals, legislative history, background, scope of work, timeline, finance and budget, and then our staff recommendations, and then answer any questions that you may have. These are our council goals that we're achieving through this project. We're growing a vibrant community, being responsible governance to ensure desired level of service, and an informed and engaged community. So this project's been in the works for a while, starting as far back as 2018, when the city approached the community with conceptual designs of the plaza, working with them through open houses, narrowing down the aesthetic look and feel of the plaza space. And then there was a small gap while Sound Transit finalized their design. This project builds off the back of the sidewalk at the corner of 236 and Van Rye, which is part of the construction, was part of the construction of the Sound Transit light rail station. So kind of having to wait until those final elevations and information was available before we could build off of that and just finalize our design as well. So that picked back up in July of 2022 and proceeded to kind of, again, re-engage with the public a couple more times, worked on a surplus of land with WashDOT, because that is their land with the I-5 limited access corridor, to secure the land that we needed to construct the project as well. So taking a little bit bigger look at the project, so this is actually Phase 2. If you look at the image, it's a little bit small here, but there's the I-5 corridor kind of running north and south in the middle, with the Sound Transit light rail station. Just to the south across the street is where the Pedestrian Plaza is going. And then Phase 1 was the Veterans Memorial Trails that were just recently completed and is now open to the public, just northeast of the light rail station. Sorry, can we go back? Sorry. This is a project that's focused on pedestrian access and connectivity around the public transit center. The Pedestrian Plaza is kind of like the gateway into the city's town center. And throughout the design, I just wanted to mention that the city was able to secure funding assistance from various partners, such as our partners from Sound Transit, as well as some earmarks from our federal partners as well to support this project as a whole. So a little bit about the scope of work. So this is kind of an overhead view of the plaza design. It sits right at the corner of 236 and Van Rye. It'll be installed a little bit on the hillside there. It is mostly landscape and hardscape with a couple retaining walls, terraced retaining walls, and then a nice art piece as well as other artistic elements as well. And to get just a little bit more details about the design elements, we have seating such as the twig benches. Those are going to be precast concrete. We've got kind of decorative pavement patterns, various trees and shrubs. An art piece that we went out and did a call for artists, and an artist was selected to install an art piece central of the twig bench, kind of in the middle of the plaza space, that will be installed after we construct this. So this is our estimated timeline. So staff placed a call for bids in late March. In April, we received 2 bids and evaluated both of those. The apparent low bid from Always Active Services, LLC, in an amount of $1.9 million was determined to be the responsive and responsible bid. If we proceed with the council award, it's anticipated that construction would start later this summer. And then a little bit of an overview on our budget. So this represents the remaining elements of the project to kind of get us through completion. So we've got construction management services and staff time, which is kind of the second piece of our discussion today. And the remaining budget for the artist contract, as well as the construction award, and then a 10% contingency for construction, as was spoken previously, to kind of be available should it, should unforeseen events or things be discovered that need attention. And here are our revenues. So we previously mentioned that we have Sound Transit and federal funding to support this project, and then we're also supplementing that with some Parks CIP fund as well. So staff would recommend that the City Council authorize the City Manager at the June 4th meeting. We can put this on the consent agenda to move forward with the construction contract with Always Active Services for their bid amount of $1,927,118.83 with an approved budget not to exceed $2,120,000.
Fabulous. Questions, comments, feedback? Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Mayor. Danielle, what popped in my head, I know you've been here all night, so you had opportunity to listen to the branding suggestions, and some of those were for artwork and, in the plaza, Sound Transit area, to stop there. What we are going to do there now, does that leave room and opportunity for other artwork similar to what they spoke about being added to that area? Or is that something that's not being worked together with?
I wasn't actually here for the full presentation, I'm sorry. I did, I think, hear about signage, maybe, and maybe that would be an opportunity to incorporate. The space is not big, so it's only around 4,300 square feet, which is a pretty tight corner there. And there are a fair amount of elements already, and I'm just trying to visualize like where it might be implemented.
So it might be a good idea to kind of see what kind of ideas they're bringing to us about that area also, or in that, just in that whole vacuum, to see if it's even worthwhile the conversation if we can't put anything there because of what we're already putting there. And that's what I mean about having everybody at the table, okay?
So this slide here does show what the sign was designed to be originally. And so we did not include that portion of the sign with the construction contract. But we do have the foundation and lighting, like power and everything else related to that here. But the design of the sign, we left off because we thought that there would be some development that would go that direction as far as internally and with the city making decisions along that route. So there is a potential to incorporate that in the future, but it's not part of this right now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But I will take it, following up on Councilmember Page's comments, I do want to highlight again the need for us to have a broad reach on our branding strategy and the placemaking strategy for all of our staff. During previous presentation, I mentioned Jeff and Gary, but I think that our entire Parks team and you, Public Works team probably should make sure that they're aware of and incorporating in the design elements and placemaking opportunities.
Any others, comments, questions, feedback? All right. I just have two. One, keep the slide you have. I will just point out they did talk about the metal fabricated sign option, but it was also paired with, well, maybe you go with the wood, which is just a reminder to all of us that sometimes you might end up playing your hand before you actually have the conversation. So all the more reason I appreciate you didn't nail it down, but it seems like that might be the area to tie it in. The only other one I had was my own selfish plan, which was any chances it will be filmed, because again, I just can't envision how this is going to happen in the spirit of like, I can't be the only one that's thinking that. Just curious if we can't turn it into an educational opportunity.
Do you mean as far as like having a live webcam to watch the construction?
So, yes, shortest answer.
We haven't planned that as part of the actual project. The construction contract doesn't include that. That's something you'd want to include with the construction contract, is if you were going to have them do that. If it was something we were going to do, we could do that on the side. I did try to do that for the fishing pier, and somebody stole my camera.
Oh.
Like in the first week I put it out there, and we put it up like 20 feet high on a tree.
Yeah.
So bad experience with that, but
Yeah,
we could look into something. I'm not sure where it would go down there to be able to show it, but that's a great idea.
Yeah, and so with that in mind and looking at the clock, maybe a different route would be contract with, say, David Carlos, who's doing a wonderful job of documenting things, and say, hey, we want you to actually document this on every other day or something like that, just from a drone perspective. And again, I'm just looking at it from that's a hole that people are going to be shocked when it's done to discover what we've done there, because I still can't get my head around it. Yeah, that's amazing. So anyway, again, looking at the time and I said it earlier and you were with me. Sorry you lost your camera. That's horrible. Man. Yeah, I liked your ingenuity. Any other questions, comments, or feedback? All right, we got a lot of things moving to the consent calendar then. And I think you have one more with us, which thank you for tying it in so tightly. Go for it.
All right, so the second piece, as mentioned earlier, is the review of the professional services agreement with Consor North America for construction management services. This is a federally funded project, and when federal funds are attached to them, they're typically a little bit more extensive requirements regarding documentation, reporting, and inspection services. So with that kind of level of tracking and documentation, observation exceeds kind of our staffing's capacity. And so thus we went out with an RFQ last October to secure a consultant to provide those construction management services for us in relation to the Pedestrian Plaza construction project. We received 2 submittals, and an evaluation committee completed their review and selected Consor to move forward with the scope and development. The drafted contract is before you tonight in an amount not to exceed $290,000 and 353 cents. This is going to be covered with local funding, and staff are recommending and requesting that the approved award also includes a 10% contingency, again, in case anything unforeseen comes up where we need additional services. So this contract, again, funded with local funds through our Sound Transit grant. Staff are recommending that City Council authorize the city manager to execute the professional services contract with Consor Northwest with a budget not to exceed $320,000.
Thank you kindly. Questions, comments, feedback? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, sir. Actually, it's kind of a general question that don't need any answers now, but I'd be curious, the contingencies funds, getting back to that conversation, we generally allocate 10 to 20% contingency funds for pretty much every project. I'd just be curious on a historical basis, how much of that are we actually using, and how often do we do overruns, I guess, beyond that? How often do we have under that? Something to be curious about for future consideration or discussion.
Councilmember Murray.
I'll be brief, but I just want to say thank you. I think this, I mean, for the whole project, but like also recognize this made me realize how often you all do this work yourselves and just appreciate the real cost savings to our city of how much that you manage internally, and also appreciate when you need to go external. So yeah, thank you.
Any other comments, questions, feedback? Seeing none, thank you very much. And since you're here so late, I encourage you to take the day after tomorrow off.
Thank you.
Thanks. All righty, we will now move to the city managers. I didn't even get any response from the city manager's report, so just go right into your report for not laughing. That was kind of funny.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing really to report tonight. Just glad we were able to accomplish the fiscal town halls over the past 2 weeks and got some good feedback from residents who attended those meetings.
Outstanding. Any questions, comments, or feedback for the city manager? Seeing none, we will move to review of the June 4th meeting agenda. Hopefully everyone's had a chance. It is uploaded to have a look. I will just point out we have 3 proclamations, and so if you would like to read one of those proclamations, please whisper in my ear before we get to Monday, or excuse me, before we have our meeting on Thursday, to make it a little bit easier for us. And so, seeing no concerns about the report, or excuse me, the meeting agenda, we'll move to council comments. Any council comments? Seeing none, I have one, which is I have a prop to do so, and I'll make it simple, which is to remind us today is actually Red Nose Day, which is actually a historical approach, which is to end childhood poverty. That we started this day with a little kid in the room who actually wanted to stay longer. That was something else. And so with that in mind, I just would encourage you all to think about ways that you give. That is still very much needed. They are looking at, that would be food, housing, you name it, all ways that you are impacted by poverty, but a lot of kids are still in poverty. That said, unless anyone else has council comments, we are officially adjourned.